Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast. It's a Wednesday night for us, and that means your favorite time of the week, viewers and listeners. It is Supercoach show. We've got the boys, we've got Jesse, we've got Trav. It's the one you've been waiting for. It is the Supercoach POD Poddy. So I know this time, not this time last year, but last year, it was about the round 20 mark, was it, boys? It was in the run home for the finals and things like that. You did do this episode, and it rated really, really well. There's a lot of feedback about it saying absolutely loved it. So we are bringing it back, and we're doing it to start the year instead. So no doubt we'll probably revisit this probably at the same time this year as it was last year to help people with the run home when people are trying to make moves and stuff. But you both said you want to bring it in now, help people. But there's been a lot of teams out there that are very similar in terms of there's a big nucleus of players, I feel like, at the moment that are in majority of teams. So let's see if we can get around the curve. Let's see if we can help people out, get them into some of these other players. Firstly, obviously, out there as well, shout out to our Legends group. $2.99 per month. You get a heap of Supercoach content. You get a heap of NRL content, in-game chat. 10% off League of Inches merch and double entries into all of our giveaways. Our current giveaway is for our League of Inches shirts. There's 3 up for grabs, which is getting drawn Friday night. And make sure you are looking just on our social media pages to get those entries in. But there's that much to talk about in this episode that we're just going to get straight into it. I'm going to throw it over to Jesse, and then he'll just take over. He'll be the host. I'll just chime in as if I'm a Supercoach professional, which I clearly am. My rating's higher than Trav's all-time rating, so I probably should just be me and you, Jesse, take this one on, and off we go. So now I'll throw it to you.
That's cool.
Good
I'll
luck.
see you later. Catch ya.
Good luck, everybody. Cannot wait for this one. Cannot wait to be part of things. Take it away, Jesse.
Yeah, so we ran the pod last year. It was actually after a bit of discussion between me and Trav. Just midweek, we were talking about, geez, like we've scored really well and we haven't made ground, or very little ground. And we just kept, pumping these decent scores out. It wasn't disappointing. We weren't getting a lot of things wrong, but at the same time, we kind of did a bit of a deep dive into our sides and realized that, geez, a lot of these dudes are pretty heavily owned by everyone above us. And that was where we were sort of looking. And when the season starts, we'll revisit these pods again, and we'll go back into differentials and the kind of where you can make up that ground, because you'll know player percentages, and you'll kind of be able to divvy it up by the top percentage groups that have them too. So the top 1%, the top 10%, the top 50 even, geez, if you're that far back in. But you can definitely work it out as the season goes. But the whole reason for this one, and the reason why we wanted to do another pod, was mainly around team selection. We've got a good idea at the moment with player percentages and who's heavily owned. A lot of it for good reason, but at the same time, like, you don't want to have the template team going into round one. There's definitely a good safety net having probably 60%, I would say, of your side being pretty popularly owned, but you do want to have those 2, 3, 4 guys in there that are just a massive point of difference and can set you on a good path starting early, because your starting round rank is very important. Last year from round one, I think I was ranked about 85,000, and Joel was in the 20,000s just off his team to start with. And then, 4 weeks later, the roles completely reversed and Joel fell off a cliff, and I caught quite a lot, and it fluctuates a lot. So you do really want to get a good start, because once you're in that top pack, it's very hard to drop out if you stay on top. And it's really hard to claw back if you're too far away from it. So going into this one, pretty much looking at players from 0 to 10% owned. I think anything over that, you're going to start to see a lot of just trending players. You're going to just throw players in your side because they are so highly owned, just to fill a spot, because, if he's that highly owned, there has to be something about him for a specific reason, whether it's cashy, if he's got good upside, he's had a low injury year or something, and he's been repriced quite low, like a Tino, for example. Like, his ownership's 30-something%. He's in my side, and I think it's quite valid because of obviously the potential. He's a 70-plus player priced in the 50s. So that kind of thing. We can talk about anti-potting as well. Is there anyone specifically this year that you look in the ownerships, Trav, where you're not keen, even though they are quite highly owned? to put you on the spot?
Yeah, Tino.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's a big one.
So for me, yeah, Tino. I'm just not sold early days. And watching the trials on the weekend just sort of concerned me even more. So, Tino is my antipod to start off with at the moment.
Yeah, that's fair. Joel, have you got anything specific that you're not going there, even with ownership, or is he the same?
Yeah, I actually have Tino on my to watch list, so I'm not going to start with him. So I'm definitely in the Trav camp there, just because I'm worried about the minutes to start with. If they don't need to necessarily rush him in, they've got a star-studded forward pack. We say on paper. Obviously, we said on the weekend that might not mean anything at all for the Titans moving forward. They might end up needing him to play those massive minutes, but probably that was a one that straight away catches my eye. Interested to see what else comes your way.
I've got another one if you want to go another one. So
sure.
Not like heavily owned, right? Tino's 30, but someone who's at 20% that I'm not keen on and I'm anti-potting at the moment is Nico Hines as well. It's just, and we've spoken about that and to an in-depth leave, but I'm anti-potting Nico Hines at this point in time too.
I would say 80% of people that don't have him, come round 6, they'll have him. Or a
maybe.
good chunk will. I just don't think Hines is the player to any pod, but just to put in a bit of perspective, 40% ownership and up. Sandon Smith is the highest at 54%. There's no reason anti-potting someone like him. He's so cheap. He's dual position. He's kicking. He's starting. There's value there. I don't see the point in going against something like that because it's so cost effective to have him. Same as Ayongi, 52%. There is merit in not having him because of the 3 gun fullbacks, but that's kind of the only way you go around it. Robert Toyer is at 49%. Again, if he gets the start, he's bottom dollar. It's like you may as well have him. So Terrell May is pretty much where the prices start to get pretty high. He's the highest owned player by percentage at the moment outside of the low cheapies. He's 45% owned. I won't be fading him to start at all. But I have seen discussion, and there was a Desi from the SC Playbook. He's put his team out for the group, and he's not about Terrell May to start
at all.
So there's definitely people he's not keen at all. So there's definitely people out there that do not want him in their side, and like he made a good point. He's gone to the Tigers and all that sort of stuff, but I just think star quality of a player kind of outweighs the team that he plays for in a way. So
I wonder if the Clement news today has changed his mind with that, because I think if anything, that's one less person who you give minutes to. So May, for mine, could get even more minutes. could almost guarantee that.
It wasn't May already going to get big minutes anyways.
Well, that was it's kind of the plan,
but Clement just being there was annoying. The fact that he potentially or highly likely not to be there now start of the year, which just ensures May's minutes should be pretty increased. I can't see myself or any team not having May in their team. I think that is crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's the first time really that we've seen such expensive front rowers being so heavily owned. Like you look at the top percentage for front rowers in general, they're quite high for 600 odd. Like you've got Adam Fanua-Blake at 17%. He's the dearest front rower, over 700k in 17% of teams. Like probably the first time I've seen a front rower over 700 in that kind of numbers. Haas at 13%, Barnett 12%, Tarpany's at 5%. No one ever really gives him too much love. And then Terrell May 45%. So like there's a lot of people going for the gun front rowers instead of the cheapy ones. So that's a play in itself. But there's a lot. There's like Metcalf, Cleary, Horsburgh. They kind of see out that top 10 of highly owned players. And to be fair, they're good value. And there's a reason why they're highly owned. And I wouldn't fade those sort of dudes. But you need, a couple of second rowers, a couple of center wings. I wouldn't go against the gun halfback combination. Same as the fullbacks. There's plenty to choose from, and they're all pretty heavily owned as well. But did you want to touch on, Trav, what kind of makes a pod for you? Like, where do you sort of pick up vibes off a player, and what makes them, appealing as a pod with low ownership as opposed to the pack?
It's probably better to explain it in an example. So because it's pretty easy to say like a pod is someone who's not owned very well or very high. So anything under 10%, right? Which is what this is going to be. And make that as an as a pod. An example of a pod for me was someone like last year, Britton Nickera, early days. Was like, I think he even dropped to somewhere around, and I can even get that, but I think he dropped to somewhere around under 3% at some point. It was like just before Origin. And for mine, I knew this dude has talent. I knew he could play. He wasn't playing poorly. I think it was averaging around the 60 odd still, but was very low price in comparison to what he can be at. So I jumped on him at that point. Now, I remember Jesse, you saying, this is a good pick, but it's also comes at a risk because of the past that he's played. But I took the pod difference because I knew, or not because in my head, I knew what Nickera could do. And at that point in time, he was only, like really low ownership. So for me, that's a pod play. So then what happens is if in 3 to 4 weeks, when his ownership goes from that sort of 3% to, 15, 16, which it did, I still think that that's a really big pod play. And that's a really good conversation to have around, I got him early when he was much cheaper than what everyone else is going to get on. So I've saved value. I've got the extra points. And I've got a dude I'm going to keep for the rest of that. So I'm in pod play because I'm 500 points up on what everyone else has got because I had him for that period of time. So that to me is still a pod play, even though he's heavily owned. So for me, an example of Nickera last year as a pod is probably the best way to say or explain how to talk around a pod. And that particularly during the year, it's about looking at potential coming up, what he's just scored or what he is starting to score, what his price is, and what the value that you think is at where we can see it increasing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much on the money with it too. Hey, you've got to there's a lot of there's a lot of trending trades that you'll get through, and you'll see a massive influx after someone's already banged out a huge score. The problem is with that, you've missed that huge score, and you're kind of hoping that they do it again. Predicting it, obviously, we're not Nostradamus. We can't, foresee them tunning up here and there, but you get a good idea around, obviously, the quality. Nicker as a gun, he did it all of 23 essentially and kind of fell off a little bit. That's why he slowed down, and I got him at that lowest price point, but again, it was starting to ramp up in ownership when I just picked him up myself. So you get him in, go, look, they've got this run coming up. They're pretty solid. Their team's on a bit of a roll. Maybe the opposition's not very good against right edge back rowers that are, pretty heavily attacking. You can always work these sort of stats out. There's plenty of avenues to find it. And yeah, you kind of just have to take a punt. I suppose that's really the big thing is you are just rolling the dice. They're low ownership. You can get stung, definitely.
Yep.
There's a lot of Marzu owners that got stung a little bit last year, hoping he'd come good. Dallin was another one, obviously got stung with. Who else would you put in that situation? Yeah, he has his,
a little bit.
Isaac Tungo. Kind of when you were hoping that Cleary would come back because his stats are such a variation between the two. Obviously, Cleary didn't come back to the extent that we wanted him to because he was very in and out. There's a player that, traditionally, and even still, we'll touch on him when we get to the center of the wing. He averages in the 70-something, mid-70s with Cleary in the side. And without him, he's averaging in the low 40s. That in itself is now this season, looking at the Panthers, for example, without Luai, I would have to say that it's very Cleary dominant. You would imagine that the ball's pretty much going to the Cleary side almost every single time. You've got a stat base of Isaac Tungo in the last couple of seasons, averaging in the 70s with him. Currently super low ownership, 500k, quite appealing. It puts him on the radar, definitely. And there's a lot of people that would be looking at him from last season going, I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole. No, thank you very much. His base is no good. I'm like, yeah, but the variations are, one, he's going to have Cleary back, different Panthers side, probably more favourite to his end. And that's kind of what I would be looking at. What makes them current now? What gives them that extra little bit of to get them to where they should be? And it's really good when they're like almost a fallen gun. Same as a Marzu, you know what I mean? With Best in the side, if you're going to be there, and you know you got Sharp in the 6, Ponga hopefully goes a bit more left. Then there's Marzu of 23 at the same time. So there's a few things to look into, but obviously he's in a bit of a different boat. His ownership's quite high. But we'll run through it like we kind of did with the positional analysis. If there's anything else, I suppose, that you want to touch on pod-wise before we start looking at actual players at all between the two of you, Joel, Trav?
No, not really. I just think you basically all mentioned it. Well, I think one player I was going to mention, I'll hold off on because I think he's in your list. So I won't use that as an example because I have a feeling we are going to get to him. And yes, just double checking the notes, we will be. So get into it. Let's go. Let's not hold them off any longer. And they're drooling at this point. They're in the car or they're going on their jog and they just go and give me some pods. Get into it. So let's go.
Well, we'll start off at hooker. I suppose this year is a little different to most because there's not a lot going on in the top end of things, I would say, because it's such a very stacked, cheapy year for the hookers. Sandon Smith, Mamazelis. You can start to throw like the conversation around Corey Pakes. He's 9% owned. I do expect all of these percentages to change very drastically come team lists as well, because it's basically going to be hitting like a clear team reset. And then let's see what we've actually got to work with. Very popular combination in the hookers, Mamazelis and Sandon Smith. 54 and 26% ownership. It's very safe, I would say. It's quite cheap. If you did want to go into that like higher end bracket and you want to get someone good, like a solid hooker that's not going to give you a headache, and I think that's probably the most valuable position to have with a hooker is as little headache as possible. Connor Watson's quite high at 28%. So, and that kind of really fills it out. It drops off a cliff. Harry Grant's 18%, which is still real high for a 691 hooker. Then Max Plath at 10. And then after Pakes at 9, you're talking like 3 and 4% across the board. And that's going to include players going down to some actual guns. Well, you've got Api Coruscant at 4%. So it's funny, and I was actually going to write something up about this one too, because going into last season with Api Coruscant, everyone was super keen on the idea of him kicking. They had a round 1 bye. So he didn't play round 1, and his ownership was in the high 20s, 30%, I'm pretty sure, starting off, and I wasn't keen on it. I just wasn't going about it, and he was probably about 30k cheaper than he is this year. So the price isn't too different. His role isn't any different. If anything, the Tigers have a better side. He still misses round 1, just like he did last year, except now his ownership is 4%. So, like, what's changed? With the Api Coruscant news, there's really no difference to how he ends to start last season. Way more popular. I suppose the expectation is he going to keep the goal kicking or not? And if that's going to be that different for him. I drafted Coruscant this year. I was wondering if you guys were going to say anything about it because of my common, banter about how I'm not super keen, but I am an avid drafter of him. So is there anything on Api Coruscant before we move on?
No, I'm not keen at all. Even the audience knows, or the super coaches know, we're not keen on Api Coruscant. That's definitely one where the audience can say, we've pretty much nailed that on the head, I reckon.
Yeah, they can kind of get that.
He's not playing first one because he's suspended, isn't he?
It's suspension. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's suspended. Dewey's there, potentially, probably more than likely going to take the kicking. Luai and Galvin have the halves locked up. So really, Api just has to get the ball in people's hands and set it up. The playmaking of his ability just is not needed as much this year. I'm just not interested in Api. Plus, also, he's 612k in a hooker position where we've got rookies that we can put into, which helps to manage the rest of our teams.
Yeah. So going through the rest of the ranks, and it's freaking wild. Marshall King, 3% owned at 555. Great draw. Pretty solid too. Like he's good. It just depends obviously on his minutes. Yeah, really low ownership. Reece Robson, 3% owned. Averaged 60 last year. 80-minute hooker. For a side that people have quite low on the ladders, which I would say is going to mean more work for him. He's got to make more tackles. He's got to do more work. There's more there for him. Super low. Brayley as well. Blake Brayley. I know you're super keen on him, Trav. Yeah. 519. Look, he's played 118 games at hooker for an average of 53, which is basically exactly what he got. It is 53. So super consistent, reliable, very little drama, no headaches. You could say probably better side as well. Probably the best the Sharks have looked for, contention for anything. I think when it comes to the hooker side of things, the cheapies are so popular that it's so hard to avoid looking at them. And the discussion just isn't there. Is it worth anti-potting the cheapies? I don't think so. Not to start, but I think...
I agree. I don't think so. And unless you're finding a way to get to Harry Grant, who has an average of 70 last year, or a Connor Watson, who has basically the average of 60. So there's which Connor Watson's going to do a hell of a lot more work this year. So that 60 price or average is going to be higher. Harry Grant will get you 70, no worries. Like, that's just because that's the way he plays. So unless you're getting those two guys who've probably got the most upside in terms of the hooker position, unfortunately, it's not an area of trying to find pods. I think you've just got to, like, I really, really high on Brayley. 519K, 3% owned, had an average of 53. I think he pushes that up a few more points. I think just the pick of Fanua Blanket and a like at the Sharks is just going to make him improve. But I don't want to spend an extra 200K that I could, or 300K almost from Sandon to him. Like, I want that somewhere else. And I think Sandon Smith's going to get pretty similar scores at a much lower price. So the hooker, unless you are going for the full upside, there's not really much else, in my view, at this point in time in that hooker role.
Yep. What hookers are you running with, Joel? Still the cheap Sandon Smith to start?
Yeah, I've got to echo sort of what Travis said. I just can't justify spending that extra 300K, which can do a lot more for my team in other positions where I think the score, I've said it before in these podcasts, I actually anticipate Sandon to stick with a lot of these guys, and call me crazy, but playing in the halves at the Roosters with the goal kicking, I don't think the Roosters will be absolutely horrible. So I think they'll still be able to score some tries. He'll get some goal kicks. He'll get a few tries, this and that as well. So I think he can stay there with some of these guys. And I just can't justify spending that extra money. I'd rather put that into CTWs or maybe an extra, a better playing 5'8", something like that, which before the podcast, I did end up making that move. So that has helped me for sure. And then, I've got Memo at the moment for my second, but I'm more and more trying to get away from him, to be honest with you, because I know it was only a trial, but I didn't like what I seen on the weekend for him. He basically got outplayed by reserve grade players, it's fair to say. And I know it's only the first one and they'll get better, but even now with the injuries that we're hearing out of the Rabbitohs camp, which we'll touch on a bit more as we go, it's just, I'm starting to become a bit less keen on some of these Rabbitohs, which I know you boys are both very keen on a few of them. I'm in the opposite camp, and even more so now. I just think they're going to, especially with that hard start, I just want to try and get away from Memo, if I'm being honest. And I just don't know who to, because I think there's a bit of a trap there with Pakes, because I don't think bloody thingamajiggy is out for too long. Moser, I don't think he's going to be out for that long. So by the time Pakes, you might get Pakes for 2-3 rounds, and then all of a sudden Moses back in, and you're still stuck with a guy that's very, very cheap and trying to find ways to get away from there. So I don't want to go to that either. So I'm not too sure what to do at the moment. I'm not sure if I just leave Memo for now, just to leave it at 300K, and then just see the Moses situation, because I just that second slot, I'm almost tempted to even just go straight down and just go, you know what, just nuff it out. See you later already. Bye.
Just go to
Owen. Don't want to entertain
two.
Yeah. I don't really like the Pakes play. I know he's done really well in the trials, but it's just so hard going into a side that has Walters, Moser, Pakes, like all these options to choose from. Smoothie. Hunt. There's just too many. There's too many mouths to feed. With all the talk though about the Knights and shipping Brayley around, it puts
Don't do it.
Crossland in the discussion.
Jesse, I can't believe you did it.
Yeah.
17 games at hooker, over 60 minutes, averages 52.
I think there's someone else in the more of a picture there, quietly.
At the Knights?
Matty Arthur. I think they looked really good when he came on. So I think Crossland has been all over the shop the last 12 months and might be that 14. I reckon Matty Arthur might be a little smoky there if they can get rid of Brayley in time.
232K.
Yeah.
That's how we go. There's I just don't think there's a great deal to really choose from. It's the same thing you're putting Crossland in the same discussion as like a Brendan Hands. And it's like, do you really want to do that? You know what I mean? Do you just want to have that problem, or do you just get someone solid and just avoid all the headaches? And that's the thing with hooker. I think you just want to try and avoid the headaches. And I feel like Sandon Smith could be the answer, to be honest with you. I feel like he's got the most chance for it. We'll move away from that dead position. Front row forward.
Bam.
Another dead position. It's
Move
not
on from that one.
yeah, it's not exactly a position that I'm too keen to anti-pod. Obviously, you guys are anti-podding one of the guys that I'm very keen to have in my side with Tino. And I don't really think I'll be advocating to get anyone Terrell May out of their side, because I think he's an absolute lock-in as well. Besides that, like there's so many guys. It's just not the position for it, to be honest with you. I think that you strive for the guns. You get your Fennell Blakes, your Haas's, Barnett, Tarpany. You get all these dudes at some point. I just think the outlay up front is too much. When the upside for Terrell May is really high, I think the upside for Tino is exceptionally high. Corey Horsburgh, Royce Hunt, with potential of minutes, Nafahu White. I think these guys are quite valuable with their jewels. I think their prices are really nice. Microwave. And I don't know if you could hear that.
Someone's about to back into your house.
Yeah. Jeez. It was so loud. Look, it's not, there's not enough upside there to any pod. I don't think it's really worth it. I think you're probably just going to get stuck plodding along. But Trav, anything to touch on the front rowers?
Not really. Again, like there's enough rookies or cheapy options in the front row forward that I think are going to score pretty similar. That I'm happy to run a Horsburgh in my second spot. So my current ones are May, Horsburgh, and then Hunt and White. So I've got 4 of the top 5 owned in the front row forward, and 3 of them are cheaper options. So to me, it's a no-brainer. If someone else pops up as a cheaper option that I think is going to do better, I'll drop it down. But for me, I'm just going to sit on that, and I don't think I want to play. I don't want to spend the extra money to get to Funu or Blake, because if I do that, I've got to do it from May. That's 110K. I like Haas, but I don't at the same time. Just to start off with, I'm pretty keen on. I like Mitch Barnett and think the role is his with the Tohu Harris retirement. But at 660K, I just want to try and see if that's actually going to happen and what happens there. He's 12% owned. So even then, we're still not really in the potting part. So at this point in time, I'm just going to let it be and let it see. Maybe one to think about that could be a pod would be James Fisher-Harris. He's 8% owned, averaged 56 last year. He's going to go through more work for sure. I think he could be. He's certainly someone to think about. He's at 549K, but for me to do that, I need to find 200K from Horsburgh to him, because I'm not going to go May down. So, and I'm not sure where I'm going to get that 200K that I want to spend on a front row forward. So, literally, that's kind of where I'm sitting with the front row forwards. Yeah.
As far as it goes to, like, if I was gonna choose a really low ownership front rower who's kind of like higher up in the brackets, I really like Max King. I think the Dogs are gonna have a good start of the year. He's 2% owned. He's really close. He's basically the same price as Terrell May, and that's the only thing that I'm a bit like, why not just get Terrell May? But I like Max King. I think he's a great player. I think he's a really good draft pick if you got him as a front rower, because you got him super late. But he's solid.
Terry, hang on, please. Whenever you in pod mode, just you go to another level. I can't believe some of these names you're already talking. Crosland, Maxi King. Where are you?
These are guys with upside. That's the whole point, mate. You got to look for these dudes with upside. Max King will never ever be highly owned. He's solid. He's like, you can't deny that he's a gun as far as a front row option goes. He's just priced accordingly. That's the thing. He's priced accordingly. And that's the thing. If the Dogs get better, he'll do good, but there's not a lot of upside compared to someone like Terrell May, whose points per minute are going to go friggin' astronomical. That's where you just don't look at it and go, well, I'm just not going to have him because May's going to do more. Fair enough. But there's like, you look into the draft side of things too, And that's really where you have to really go for these pods, is because you only get to choose one. No one else gets him. Players like that, going to be super reliable, going to be very low on the radar. You're going to get hell late in a draft. I love it, honestly. And I had him last year as well in one of my drafts, and he was just a weapon when he come back from injury anyway. Draft's a different discussion. It is, but it's the same concept. You're still looking forward to, you can put the head-to-head side of things in draft into a bit of a classic mold as well. Obviously, are you getting these pods to make coin, or are you getting them to just deviate from the path and try and get more upside? It's very similar.
But then my argument to that is you just end up going Horsburgh and even like Royce Hunt, things like that, because then there's players that have benefit to financially for your team, where I think Max King's just a player that will sit there and he's just sit there and he might get you your 50, but not going anywhere with him.
Well, it's kind of like having like Ruben Cotter last year.
Josh Curran.
Yeah, but that was dual as well. Max King doesn't have dual.
No, he doesn't.
So Cotter's biggest thing last year was the dual factor, I think.
Yeah, well, you got him in there because he was a front rower. Basically, had that dual, but he was doing the exact same thing. He's going to get you that 55, 60 every week. And you know what? It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Are you going back to Belmore this year out of curiosity? Because this might have something to do with this.
If I get invited.
You want to get out of Belmore.
We'll see.
Sucking up to their players.
Maybe 1 or 2. That's it. But yeah, I think the front rowers that we have them not because of their ownership. I think they're just the best options, really. Because you said all the ones, the popular ones, Trav, that you've got in your side, they're exactly the same in my side too. So,
yeah, pretty much.
Second row,
forward, done.
Second row is where it kind of gets a bit of fun. You made your own list of second rowers to talk about. I'm going to bring up the differences between them. Have you got your second row of choice up there, Trav?
Yeah, I'll just start from the top.
From the top. Yeah, go for it.
Start from the top. So David Fifita. Right now, David Fifita wasn't really on my radar, and he's actually he is on my radar, but I'm just hell bent on I don't really want star players in my Supercoach team that have a bye in the first, at least 3. So I won't get him. But this dude's at 2%. Now, the reason why he's on my radar is because I'm constantly watching draft teams pick him up in the first round. And I'm sitting there thinking, what am I missing? So I sort of asked Jesse to have a little deep dive into it, which he will talk to me about in a second. But so David Fifita is, and because I've swapped it around to highest owned, David Fifita, 749K, averaged 76 last year. Everyone talks about how bad his year was, which is so funny to talk about. But, everyone literally said David Fifita wasn't very good. He didn't have a good year. Well, in terms of Supercoach, he had a bloody ripping year. He had 76.5. He played 20 games. So it's not too bad for a 2RF. In the type of way that he plays and what he has to do. That's just immense. So, and it just dumbfounds me that is at 2%. Now, I think it's 2% because of the bye. I think it's 2% because Tino's back. I think it's 2% because he plays for the Titans. I think it's 2% because RCG's there. And we're still worried and wondering what's going to actually happen with their forwards. But it just mind blows me that David Fifita is only 2% owned.
Yeah, it's insane. Going back to, I'll just put his last 2 years worth of stats in there because it's a bit more of a sample size to work on. He played 37 games last 2 years on the back row, averaged 82 over 2 seasons with a base and power of 65 points. 76 minutes overall as well. So it's, it's over a point a minute, 1.08. Prices him at just over 800K. So if you're going off the last 2 years of sample size, he's 50K underpriced. Which is just insane. And you look at his numbers himself, he scores 70 plus 73% of the time over 2 years. He's scoring 90 plus 27% of the time. That's
just stupid.
It's just dumb.
It's just stupid.
Yeah.
And yet he's 2% owned. And it's because he's 749K more than likely. And all the talk around the Titans. What did he start the price at? My Supercoach app has died. I'm just getting the ring of death, basically. But what was his starting price last year?
His starting price last year was $832.
So $90,000 more.
Yeah. And I'm actually pretty sure his ownership was quite low last year because I don't think he started. I think him and Jaden Campbell were injured to start last season. So yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of just is he under injury cloud at the moment, or is it just the bye?
No, it's just a buy for him. He's not injured.
God damn. I feel like I'm gonna want him so quickly. Like at 750, it's cheap for him. I look at 750 David Feder, I'll be like, yeah, lock that in. Like for what we know he can do, even just off a 2-year sample size, I could probably increase that to 3 years. And I don't think things are going to change too much in the negative.
Yeah, so he didn't play the first 3 rounds. He came in round 4 and got a 57 against the Dolphins. And then played the Cowboys and got an 81, played the Raiders, got a 71, played the Manly, got 86, played New Zealand, got 126, played Melbourne, got 84, played the Cowboys, got 98, played Newcastle, got 89, played Broncos, 86. Now, remember, this is a dude who everyone said that he wasn't having a good year.
Yeah,
had the bye, played South, got 81, didn't play against the Tigers, came back, played New Zealand, got 84, and then had the bye in round 17. Like, come on now. There's one score below 80. There's 2 scores below 80 in his first game back after 3 rounds off, and a 71 against the Raiders in 13 games. It's just, but remember, this is a dude who didn't have a good year last year.
No. And that's the thing, if you're going off that, if him having a bad year, it's like, well, what do you expect off a good year? And is it even human? Like, yeah, look, I'm very keen to get David Fafita in my side, even more so than I already was. I don't think I'll start with him round 1 because it is a lot of coin to drop into someone that, in a second row position playing on a bye. But the numbers don't lie. Hey,
I just got a question, right? If Isaiah Yeo is at 11% ownership, right? He played 2 more games, scored, and on average 2 points less than Fafita did. It's $20,000 less. Like I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, Yo's going to play the first game, so you're going to get that 70-point difference. But eventually, Fafita's going to have a bye, so essentially, the games are going to catch up.
Yeah.
Like I'm just looking at it, just going, well, instead of Yo, go Fafita. Like, or if you've got Crichton, go down. Like I just can't believe. Yeah, Fafita's it's just ridiculous with his numbers and what he can produce.
Yep. Do you want to hit your next one?
Yeah, so the next one is Hudson Young. So I just want everyone to realize that this guy scored 70 last year on average in 22 games for the Raiders. He's 2% owned. Spit some numbers for me, Jesse, because this guy's a freak.
Okay. So, yeah, 70 average last year in 22 games. Base and power of basically 59, so very, very solid. I'll look at it again. I'll go through the last 3 seasons because it is nice to compare it. He scored 10 tries last year, 8 tries the year before, 11 tries the year before. So it wasn't a breakout try year for him. He actually scored more in 22. Didn't average as high because he had a bit more evade stats, but even still, points per minute, 0.8. He's averaging, 80 minutes. He's a full player. Like he's a 70 averaging back rower, scoring, 10 tries in a season. Gun. Like that's very solid. He scored 50 plus 70% of the time. Didn't have the same sort of output as a Dave Fafita, but realistically, no one does. So you can't really compare those two together, even though price-wise, they're 50K apart. It just makes David Fafita even more appealing. If I was to go look back at his last 3-year average as a combined stat, 65 games in the back row, averaging about 64 points. So it's a slight dip on what his last year's average was. It was the best year that he's had so far. 70 just gone, 56 in 2023, and then a 64 in 2022. So he's always up and about it. Obviously, last year was a bit of a drip, but it's not that much of a drop, really, when you think about how much he bounced back. That was a 15-point increase. It's quite a lot, actually. So, yeah, it just depends on what you can sort of see him doing with this Raiders side this year. I don't think the tries really dry up for him. It looks like he's always good for that 10 a season kind of number or thereabouts. But yeah, he's never highly owned. He's always sort of overlooked as an option as well. So he's one of those second rowers that you can definitely and confidently call pod for the entire season. And he's one of those guys who I don't really think you need to go too far away. The Raiders aren't, as far as they go, they're not a fantastically built side. Like there's a lot of uncertainty all the time around them. if he's in the side, which he is always, he's the first picked, I'd imagine, in that second row, unless he does something dumb and he gets himself suspended because he's a bit of a hothead. He will never not be there for it. And the Raiders are just battlers all the time, so there's effort every single game. So I really like it. I can see why the ownership is only at 2%, and I don't really see it increasing a great deal, even after a massive string of good performances. But again, that's half the point of these pods, really. He's not going to let you down.
No, he's not.
No.
You can't be let down with 70 points on average. That's just not a letdown. That's to me is an amazing pod who will pretty much be a pod for the entire year, as you said.
Yeah,
wonderful.
And so
don't hate
couple
that.
of his big scores. He got a 101 in round 6. He got 114. He's an 88 and a 120, a 104, an 85, and a 102. So he's tonned up. What's that? 5 times last season. One of them quite well with a 120. That's big, man. That's real big.
There's
if he gets
upside.
a couple, big upside. If you're just going off that, a lot of the games that he's going to have in there, they're going to be middling 50s and 60s. But geez, if you can get a 120 in the midst of that, like that's really good stuff. There's not a lot of second rowers that can hit 120, even in the top bracket as well. Like you're only going to get a handful of 120s out of an Akora or a Katoa even. They might have a pretty solid base out of it, but he's in there. He's in the discussion, but his ownership definitely isn't.
No. My next boy, Nikora. Now we just mentioned, or Nikora, sorry, which you just mentioned, he's at 3%. Currently 682,000 to start. Plays Penrith first game, average 69.7. And looking at the numbers before, up until round 13, which I was talking about just before, he was only hang on, I'm just pulling it up now. He was averaging at round 13 when I picked him up, he was averaging 54. So at that point, I picked him up at 542K. He dropped another 20K to get down to 524, but I picked him up in round 13. He gets me against the Broncos. He gets me a 62, drops that 20K. So I lost 20,000 at that point in time, but got me 60 points. From then on, he just went ballistic.
Yep. So he's priced at 682. Looking at the stats for him for the last few years, obviously he's averaged a 69.7 last year. The season before that, it was a 70. The season before that, it was about a 62 as well. So he's pretty much priced according to what he gets. I think as far as upside on his current pricing right now, there isn't a great deal for. But again, he's got that game in him too. So just like last year when he sort of tanked a little bit and he came back up again, I think that's kind of where you sort of pick your run with him. He's very heavy in the back half of the season. I've noticed with his scores, they tend to really pick up from about midway on. So if they do take that little bit of a tank in the beginning, if you can get him up for anywhere in the 5s, I think that's freaking incredible value for an Akora. And you just lock him in for the season, really. You just let it ride out. So, yeah, he's really solid. You got much more on that? You got anything on these guys, Joel?
Not yet.
No.
He's waiting.
I like Young from an NRL point of view. Absolutely love him, and I think I had him in one of my drafts last year and rode the. I felt like a lot of them were highs, and how consistent he was. I just feel like for the eye test, he's just in for a huge year. I really do believe that. So I'm keen to watch him. He's not in my Supercoach plans at this stage, but you never know. That could change after someone like Olakuatu finishes his run. Maybe Hudson Young starting to look for a run, things like that might become into calculation. But I think once Ola's finished his run, you're looking at doubling up and maybe getting your Fafitas in, things like that. So I think that's another big reason why Fafita might be that low, because someone like Olakuatu, everyone's predicting to have a really hot start. So I think that also plays into some of these numbers, that you've got someone who is cheaper than these guys, who looks like he's going to be able to match a lot of these players to start with. So again, trying to work this money out and trying to play around with the figures and things like that, when you can have these sorts of players come in like your Olas, you basically just have to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to give you another one that just fits that bill really, really, really well, Joel, and from what you were saying, and that's my man Kula Matangi. And after
Yeah.
the recent news today, let's
It's kinda
discuss,
hard
Jesse.
to-
Throw me some numbers.
Okay, it's really hard to ignore this one. So obviously Murray's gone and done his Achilles. So we're expecting, what's that, 5+ months, 5 to 8? Freaking heartbreaking.
Well, the NRL physio said that the quickest he's seen of someone's recovery is 5 months from an Achilles.
Yeah. So
So
it's quite a while. That's
much
season out
longer
for
than
him.
5 months.
Yeah. Okay. So when you start to look at the replacement, as far as it went last year, Koloamatangi replaced Murray in a way at lock position. He played 11 games total at lock and then rotating from lock through the edges. So it's kind of divided in those 11 between 4 games just at lock, friggin' massive minutes, didn't go anywhere, stayed in the 13, to the other 7 where he went and moved to the left and the right. So in the 4 games at lock last season, averaged 84.7, base and power stats of 75, played 77 minutes for a 1.1 average, puts him at 829k. He also scored 2 tries in those 4 games as well. So he got busy, like very, very busy. Averaged 3.2 tackle busts a game, 1.5 offloads a game. It was an immense 4 games for him at that just in lock position. If you look at the other middle and edge games, it was about a 65 average, 60 in base, a little bit less in the minutes too, 66 average. So it does drop a bit, but it's always dropped a bit for him on the edge. And I think that's why the appeal is so massive for him to replace Murray. If it's just a direct swap, like for like, and he's in the 13, I got to say that's like near must-have territory. Like it really,
It's
really
more
is.
than near must. It is definitely at that price at 619,000. He's currently 4% owned. Here's a gold mine of a pod play for everybody. I foresee that 4% will be it. I think it will be higher come round 1, but at this point in time, take it for face value. It's 4%. And I think I was high on him already before this news, and I'm even more keen to get him in. And to be fair, as soon as I found out about Cam Murray, as harsh as this is, it was cut, gone, see you later, and went straight to Koloamatangi.
Yep. Joel, what are your thoughts on Kolowala?
I like it. The only slight little worry for mine is Duncan. I just think it's getting to the point where he has to be in this team. I think Wayne Bennett will give him the chance. This now means there's a huge opening for him. And let's not forget, Koloamatangi, he's looking ridiculously fit. So maybe they've shaped him to make sure he is that edge role. That might be where they're trying to just get him to play. I think he's normally on the Campbell Graham side, isn't he? When he's
Keon?
playing. Yeah. They're
Yeah.
normally together. So that might be a combination that I know Wayne's big on these combinations. So he might be looking at keeping that together maybe when he's got Duncan there who can play that sort of middle forward role as well. But I don't mind the shit. He obviously killed it last year in a South team that was massively depleted. Definitely can see the merit for it. I'm just cautious, and I think I'll wait till team list to definitely make that play. But as Trav said, if it gets a team list and he's named at 13, that will skyrocket to 15%, if not more. So
Yeah. And just depending on how things go with Duncan as well, I may as well just have a quick look at him. He's 420k. He's 1% owned at this stage. Looking at the games that he's played, if he is a lock, there's been 1 game that he's played there, average 55.
Yeah.
To be fair, he did that in 45 minutes. So it's pretty good numbers, man. That's 1.22. If it's a 50 plus 60-minute roll, like you have to think that's going to be in the high or mid 60s. At 420k, I'd be very happy with that. We've kind of all been waiting for Duncan to get a chance. So played
I'm
5
just
games on the.
looking. Sorry,
Sorry.
he has extended now until the 2027 as well recently. So he's definitely in the plans of South and someone they want to keep. So I feel like it has to be this year. I feel like we've been speaking about Tallis Duncan now for 2 years. When he got that
about
little sniff, I felt like 2 years ago, and everyone was like, "Wow, this is a player." And then JD just didn't use him last year for whatever reason. And then obviously he got sacked, and then Ben Hornby didn't use him too much either. A lot of benchy roles and stuff like that. So I'm keen to see him. I'm keen to, because obviously the new player style a lot more mobile. I think he suits that. But again, I think Kaloa and Matangi owners will want to not see him anywhere near this team.
Yeah, I think, depending on how it runs, man, they're both great value. They're both going to be really appealing. So just like who is named and who that person is will be in my side, I reckon.
I'm in a way, I'm more keen on Duncan than I am Kaloa to get that position. Maybe the price tag. I don't know.
Price?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Save me some money, please.
It's a bit more proven. I think, I'd rather have Kaloa Matangi in there just for the points. But yeah, 420k is really good for his price tag. Who else we got, Trav?
So I've got Jacob Preston, 609,000. Owned 5 by 5%. So that's actually increased because when I picked him up, or when I had him on my radar about a week ago, I think it was only 2%. So that's grown the last week. Averaged 62 last year in 17 games. Young forward on the rise in a rising, much improved or a team last year is only going to improve even more. I think they're going to ride Jacob Preston. I think he's their leader of their. I think he's their leader in terms of the forwards. Obviously, you got kick out on edge and things like that. But Preston's their go forward, and I'm very keen on Preston and what he can do this year.
So he's got stats for 22 and 23 and 24. They're almost completely identical. 2024 he averaged 62.2. 2023 he averaged 62.2. So insane. Very similar in base and power, 52 to 53. Going down minutes, he actually played less minutes last year than he did the previous. So 66 minutes last year compared to 77 the year before. So on that, there is improvement with an extra.
My wondering is that because of some injuries that he copped and stuff like that. Yeah.
It was all injury related. I think he had a broken jaw or something in the middle of the season, or he come back and he got injured again, and it was quite broken up for him. But if I take out, essentially injury affected games by just going from 60 minutes plus, it puts his average up to 60, just under 67. So there is a bit of upside in there too, and that was off a 72-minute average for the season, priced at about 650k. So, there is a bit of upside for him. I think with Preston, he flies through the eye test. He's an absolute weapon. And I think you're just expecting him to be improvement. Like, I reckon there is improvement in Preston's game. He's still young. He's, it's only
his third season.
It's his third season. Like, it's just going to get better for him. And the Dogs are much better than they were in his first season. So, I really like him as a player. And I think he's a good option too. At 5%, like, I don't think he can really go wrong. I think Preston can push up there with the best of them on his day.
There's only upside in him. Like, he's averaged 62. He's done another preseason. This will be his third season. It'll just improve. He has to go up further. That whole list is only going to naturally improve. I'm very high on that Bulldogs team. And I think he's the leader of that. So I think there has to be more improvement in him. I think he gets to at least a 65 average at the end of this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that this year.
I would say he probably creeps up between 65 and 70, to be fair, if he does do that improvement. Because if his floor and his base average is 62, like, you're getting him, for his essentially a little bit lower than what his price would have been because of the way that the budgets have adjusted this year. Pretty good, man. I think it's pretty reliable. Yeah, not bad.
I've got two that's going to be really random. One is our man. We love him so much, Mr. Bateman, who is now playing for the Cowboys. So Joel can put his head in his hands all he wants. There's a roll up on the Cowboys. There's a roll up on that Cowboys that someone needs to fill. And there's a whole reason why Bateman was targeted to go to the Cowboys. Probably because no one else wanted him. But there's a whole role for the Cowboys that they needed filling. And when he came up, it was pretty quick, right? So the Tigers wanted to get rid of him, and pretty quickly he's on the Cowboys list. So they needed him. They want him. They've got a role. Obviously, someone's got to fill that Lukey role. And Lukey's a gun to beat. And if that fella can stay healthy, he's going to be a star. Bateman, I think, is not Lukey, but there's a position and there's a role and there's points to be made for that person, and that's Bateman. At his price, I just, it's really hard to ignore. It's really hard to ignore.
Oh, it is. It's actually insane because he's the cheapest he's ever been, essentially, out of his first season when he started at the Raiders. In 2019, when he did start at the Raiders, he averaged 74.6, followed by just under a 70 average in 2020. So, huge years, like monster years. And then obviously going to the Tigers, like most, sucks the life and fantasy relevance out of anyone. Averaged 62 last year, just shy of, and then a 56.8.
To be fair to Bateman, in his 80 minutes, he scores pretty well. So when he played 80 last year, he got 50, 52, a 60, an 87, a 65, a 70, a 55, a 57, and a 60. So in his 80-minute games, he played really well and scored decently. In his game, so this is what brings down his average, is that in a game against the Dolphins, he got 39, he got 21. He played 39 minutes, got 21. Played 40 minutes, got a 20. Played 58, got a 40. So like those 3 games where he doesn't get the 80 minutes for whatever reason it was, I can't remember, is the reason why his average is actually is sitting at that 52. We're getting a fella who's going to go to the Cowboys and probably play those huge minutes that they need because there's a clear role. After losing Finifuaki, Taumalolo's out, Lukey's gone. There's minutes in their forward pack. And so he's ready to go. So like he might not play, and he won't. He'd probably more than likely play an edge sort of spot, but there's minutes to be shifted around for that. And Bateman's ready to go, and I think he's raring to go. And the value at 522 is just immense. Yeah,
it's screaming value. If you're just going to run off, like, if call it 70-minute plus games, because I don't think he's really going to do too much less than a 70. His so far career average 41 games in the NRL. He's averaged 68. 670 Ks worth of points right there. And if you look at just what he did with the Tigers, it was a 56 in that amount of minutes last season, and the season before he averaged 64 in 12 games. So already the Cowboys are a better side than the Tigers, and he's already looking like he's, essentially 100K or so undervalued of his Tigers average. So I just don't see how it's not a good buy. I really don't. I just think you just have to not like him enough to not want to get him in your side, because there's points and money to be made with Bateman, as weird as it is to say, because he Joel's disdain, mate. You can't ignore it. You can't ignore it.
You can discriminate in Supercoach because as long as they score points on Supercoach, who cares about who the player is?
Basically.
So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to hear what Joel's going to say or where he's going to go, because I just can't see that argument being any more positive to start for an awesome pod play.
I'm not going to try and change the minds of you two. You've been brainwashed, so I'll just let this one go through to the keeper, and just be happy that I don't waste my time, trades, or money on John Bateman.
So you really think that Bateman won't average 50?
I think he might average 50, but it's not a player that I want to go after. I think there's much better options in and around him, even a lot cheaper than him. So I just don't want to entertain having John Bateman.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not going to argue with you.
Who's to say he's not going to throw the dummy once again, and he'll be in England midway through next year? No one knows. So no thanks.
That's all right.
I just don't want to go near it.
Just trade him when
trade
it happens.
him out.
That's right. Just trade him when it happens.
You guys can have it. You guys can have him. No, thank you.
Got a sneaky one for you, Joel. Looks like Zach Hosting's cleared for round 1.
Oh, I'm back on me, boy. I'm back on. All in. See, there's a player. There's a player.
So just on that, I am going to touch on Zach Hosting because I do like him. I reckon he's an absolute weapon when he is on as well. 2% owned. Obviously, he's got to get the spot because you've got Nicholson doing pretty good things. If we're going for a straight up, 70-plus minute role for back row, 10-game average, 71 points. Not bad. He's also got one game off the bench for the big minutes. He averaged 109. So, yeah, he's a big dog. So there's one for you. That's a possibility if you do want to deviate from it. You've got one more there, Trav, I'm pretty sure.
Yep, I do. And I'm really keen on this guy, and I can just see so much more improvement
Reeks
in
of
him
Max
on a
King.
list. Reeks of Max King.
It really does.
Our Storm boy. Hey, well, if you're very high on Max King, then let's talk about it. It's my Storm boy, Liero.
You tell me.
Right, so 1% owned. Played 23 matches last week. He's
Last
young.
week.
Last
That's a lot in a week.
So last year, he played 23 matches, averaged 52.4 in obviously a Storm team that was flying. In and around the Origin camp, there's big improvement. He's thrown around a fair bit, but he's now towards sort of halfway to the end of the year. He locked that 13 roll down. It's now his role. I'm just really high on him. As a Storm fan, I can just see so much improvement. He's got such good soft hands. He's got such good skill. He's a good runner. He's got great heart. He's a workhorse. He's just everything perfect for the way Bellamy and what he loves in his players. And he fits that bill. And I can just see Liero really stepping in now that he's locked in it into like a, and it kind of makes me think a little bit like Howarth in though that they're different, very different players, but it just makes me, I can just see now that like the confidence that was instilled into Howarth when he was told, this is your role, you're a center for us, and this is what you're going to do, and what he was able to do. Now it's Liero, you're the 13 for the Storm under Bellamy with this spine that we've got. I can only see massive upside in Liero and really think he's going to push up to about a 60-point average.
I like that you think that a lot and you have the optimism for it. I just cannot see it. Honestly, I genuinely can't. Like I've had him in a draft as just a guy to plug on my bench if I needed a 50-point a week. You know what I mean? I like where does he gain it? Because I'm looking at his so far, like obviously moving forward, you'd have to expect improvement naturally. Players
You
get
just said
better
you're
with
happy if
time.
Bateman averages 50 a week.
No, I didn't say he's going to. I thought he's going to average 60 plus. It's 60 plus or nothing. So 10 games at lock for Liero. He's averaged 49.8 with a 51 in base and power. So there's very little deviation there. He's basically just, making his tackles and he might bounce off one. Yeah. And potatoes. Back row, 28 games, averaged 51 with a base and power of 48. So he's done something different in there. Maybe he's got a try assist in one game. Between the middle and the edge, 10 games, he's averaged 56. And off the bench, you can't really count them, averaging 33. So there's enough games in there. You know what I mean? Like you're looking at over 50 games almost.
Yeah. So, but you're also looking at over 50 games on a Storm list that's been thereabouts in grand finals. He's only just turned 23. Hadn't had a spot locked yet. Yep. Hasn't locked a spot down. Hadn't locked a spot till really last year, about halfway through last year. It's hard. Like I get you got the stats, and I get you can call it what it is, and you can say those things. But when you're a player that's having to shift around and do different things and play different roles, and consistently you don't know where you're playing, and then you get named at that spot, and then halfway through the game you get pushed to somewhere else. It's hard to do, right? It's hard to play, and when you're that young, that's where it is. And he had to plug a hole. He had to play spots for what we needed. At the end of the day, he played for the Storm. The Storm said, this is what we need. You got to do it. But now he's actually locked down that 13 spot. I can only see massive improvement. Base at a price at $512. And if he's going to average 60, there's a $650,000 play coming up pretty quickly. And I'm pretty keen to see that.
Are you saying that just because you think the attacking stats will be increased?
Yes, there will be, definitely. I think there's a couple of extra there's tries in him in terms of attacking stat. I think he's going to be more of a ball runner as our 13. Offloads, that sort of stuff. He's got really good hands.
I'm kind of with Jesse here because I just can't see it with his game because I think that's his role for the Storm and he does it so well now. He's just that meat, veg, and potatoes bloke. He will go about getting the defense made and make that hit up that needs to be done. I just can't see unless he ends up getting back to the edge and there's a big injury there at some point in the year. I just can't see him being a huge upside in terms of attack. And I think he's got his role. He's very good at that role. Obviously, he got that taste of being in part of the Origin squad last year. That will probably continue. I think he'll be a great squad player for the Storm and do his role continually. But I don't think the Storm are at a point now where they've got that many attacking-based players who are the attack in that team. And I think he's not needed for that. Like you've got Katoa there for an attacking. You've got Blore who's really starting to find his feet towards the back end of last year. I don't think his role will be in that team, be an attacker, hit that line runner for us. He'll be more of a get us to point A, get us to point B, and make sure we're getting into those positions, which I just don't see much upside at all. He's not a yo in my opinion, and that's what you want that sort of player for doing to be Supercoach relevant.
There's only one yo in the competition, really. Let's be honest. But
I'm only going him.
That's it.
They're all fair points, but I've got him as a pod play. I'm not starting him, but I'm certainly got it. I do have the star on him. If you're a Supercoach Plus member, you can star players and put them on a watch list, and he's that person. There's my plug. Tick.
Actually, I didn't know you could do that. That's handy.
Me either.
There you go. Learn something new. Yeah, there you go. Bit of a smoky one to end that. That's a bit of fun. And that was the end of your list. Cool. Well, my list is entirely different, obviously on purpose, but I've just got a note here, and I just wanted. It's not even a pod anymore because he's 11%. Yo is 11% owned, probably for the first time ever. Higher than Crichton, Fafita. Higher than Crichton and Fafita combined. Higher than Eli Katoa and Nakora combined. Higher than Hopgood and Young as well combined. Like he's so highly owned now for, I suppose, for a good reason, really, isn't it? It's just you're getting essentially what could be the best second rower in the comp, but
everyone's sick of not having him.
Yeah, it's just Joel. I think you've got him.
I don't want to miss out anymore. So
I've got him.
Yeah,
I've got him, and it's more enhanced because the study is notorious for these attacking players to not quite be there yet, in the scores. So I'm happy to have Yo playing his role, getting his 70, maybe even 80 odd at the start of the year, just being that busy. That no Jerome Luai, I think, is a huge plus for his game as well. I think he just means he does just that even a little bit more, which is crazy to think in itself. So yeah, I've locked and loaded. I've spent the money. Just get me by with Yo, and if there's anything that goes pear shaped, at least I'm at the top, and all I have to do is go down.
That's it. So I'll start off. Like obviously, we haven't really spoken too much on Angus Crichton. I think at his price point, it is quite dear. He's 8% owned, so he's still pretty decently owned considering he's under that 10% bracket. But with all the stuff going on with the Roosters, I just think he still kills it. I don't think he worries too much about it all. But again, I'm probably not going to spend that kind of money round one. The first player that I wanted to talk about is Jermaine Hopgood. 8% ownership. It's actually 9% now. Sorry, it was 8% when I wrote that yesterday. So it looks like, there is a bit of appeal there for Hopgood. But going back to look at his stats going prior, man, those last couple of years, that 2023 season was freaking out of control. He averaged 73.2, 24 games, pretty much coming out of nowhere. And then that season there with a base average of 67 with power. Last season wasn't too different. He played 12 games, obviously did his back, I think it was, with his injury. Averaged 67 with a base power of 62. So going off the stats there, I just think when you're looking at his price at 650, I can't see how you can lose out on Hopgood. I think that we're kind of just sort of forgotten about him in a way. For whatever reason as well. Like he was, the talk of everyone's team in 23 and into 24 as well. I remember he was super high owned, but it's always hard buying a guy in their second year when you just had them so cheap to start because you have it in the back of your mind. Oh, but I bought him for 300K. it's gone. Like that time has passed. It's gone. You got to forget about it. I love the Hopgood play to start. I don't mind the Eels draw to start either. I think they can do a lot with that. And if you're just going to go in there as a, essentially a 65 odd minute lock who can play more with attacking upside, geez, there's a lot of value in him. I would say at least 1.1 minimum points per minute for him. Is there any world where you go Hopgood over Yo, Joel?
There potentially was before I looked at this week's team list, because I anticipated Jermaine Hopgood to spend a fair bit of time in the front row throughout this year. Now that Jack Williams has been named at prop officially, I feel like that's potentially squashed that at all, because we've also heard a lot in the preseason about how jacked Williams, after seeing many photos of him, how fit he is, how much he is literally training the house down. Potentially one of the fittest, if not fittest, forward at the club. So I think, and then I look at some of these other players like Moretti, Ryan Madison, Charlie Geimer. Like there's some of these players who I just think need to have some game time. And there was one thing that I said in Hopgood's game I didn't really like last year, and it was the fact that Brad Arthur was pushing him a lot before he got injured, and he was missing a fair few tackles in defense and leaving a bit of a gap. Now, hopefully he's had a preseason now. He's got a bit fitter. He's still young. He's still quite new to the NRL, but I'm a bit cautious. I'm more so now got him on my watch list. As I said, I was more keen probably a week ago on him. I'm now just sort of going, I'll just see how this happens, because the forward pack, there's a few names here that I feel like are going to start eating into each other's minutes a fair bit.
Fair. Trav?
No, I'm not. There's not a world that I'm going to start with Hopgood. I think I would like to. I do like him. I think there's potential, but I've listened to Joel for the last few weeks talking around this, and some of the posts and things and the comments that people are talking around. And I'm not interested yet. I just want to see what's happening. And what happens there at Para before I do anything. I'm much happier to drop 40K and get down to Coolamatangi. 30 odd K and go down to Coolamatangi, where I think I know I've got huge upside. And I'm way more certain that he's going to be able to produce that in that team to start with.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm super keen on him. Obviously, I've got the memory of how good he was. I haven't really seen or heard too much of the inside of the Eels insider that is Joel. So, yeah, I guess you got a lot more, background sort of knowledge out of what's happening in the dressing rooms there for him. So it'd be interesting to see. But there's obviously he's 9% owned, so there's still people that are definitely keen on him. But I've just seen very little discussion around Hopgood. But then you look at players above him, I suppose you got Barnett, who's heavily owned, but he's the jewel at the same time. Olakau'atu's ownership at 19% is pretty high, but again, it's Olakau'atu and their draw is insane. And then outside of that, Yo's ownership is probably the next one that's higher than him at Adira Price at 11. So, yeah, I just think he can comfortably do that and outscore majority. So, the next one that I've got was actually, funnily enough, it was Cameron Murray yesterday. Oh, rip. It's probably a bad thing that I wrote it up. Cursed him. Bad juju. I had him at 4%. Now that's cut in half down to 2%, probably to drop to 0 very shortly. That sucks. Because I was so keen when I heard that he was cleared for round 1 to get him back in the side. And then I quickly had to just take that away. So, no bueno. Sean Blaw, 1% owned. This surprised me a lot, actually, when I saw that, because I just think for his price, around that 500, I really don't mind it. Like, we saw, obviously, what he did last season. He sort of had a breakout. He averaged that 54. It was very injury affected for his side with Munster out too. And I think the stats that show when he plays with Munster, they do definitely improve. I'd have to do a lot of digging to try and compare those ones. I haven't found an easy way to get those comparisons up. But at 534K, he's a bit cheaper than Bradley and Leilua and Curran. And I just think he's got more in his game than those boys have. The buy in round 2, obviously a factor, I would say, in his ownership at that price. But 1%. It's like, why is it only 1? Surely there's a bit more appeal than 1%. What do you reckon?
I can't see it. I can't.
No?
I can't see it. I think
Yeah.
I
Has to
think
get better.
Eli Katoa scares a few as well, because I think a lot of people will want to go to Eli Katoa and they won't want to have both edge back roles at the same club in their team. So if there's a time, and again, we never wish on this, but if Katoa say does go down, I anticipate Blaw's numbers would increase, because I think he'd become their main sort of edge guy. So that's probably something to keep an eye on for myself. But yeah, at the moment, I just think there's a way more options out there that are appealing to me than Sean Blaw.
I just think he's got a lot to improve on. Sorry, Trav.
No, I was just going to ask, do you have his attacking stats?
I was just about to read them off.
Average. Yep, go.
So he scored 2 tries last year in 21 games. So there's obviously massive room for improvement on that side. 0.1 try assist, 0.2 try contributions. So next to nothing in attacking stats, which can always be improved on. 1.38 tackle busts a game, 1.4 offloads a game, 0.3 ineffective. So almost 2 offloads a game, give or take, between effective and not. Negative points, only 1.5, if that. 73 minutes. Like, all he has to do is get a couple of tries. Like, his attacking stats were non-existent last year. It's a good base to come off.
So, and I actually think you'll find that those 2 tries that he got were off Munster really early in the piece, when they were just trying to figure out what it was. Actually, I think I can remember them too. So I do with that. Munster's back clearly and healthy. You've got Hughes working with Katoa. You've got Munster working with Blaw. I think that relationship is only going to get better. But in saying that, Munster then came back for a large portion of for a portion of that last half of the year, and he still didn't get the attacking stats. Really like Blaw, love the role he plays. He was a really good pickup that we got from the Tigers again. We made him better, but I think Blaw is what Blaw is. So you kind of mentioned those things about Liero. Blaw is what Blaw is. Blaw plays that role. Blaw gets that ball. Blaw hits the line, breaks that line. And then that's where we were able to then work out our wingers and our centers and able to do what it was, which is the side of I've gone blank, but I think that's the Howarth and
the left side.
That's the Howard and Coates side, which is then why they were able to improve, because Blaw just did the simple hard work and then off they went. So. And I think that's continuing what Blaw's going to do this year for us, and all we need him to do. I think probably 1 or 2 more tries will pop up as he gets better and finds his feet more, and obviously around Munster. But I think Blaw is what Blaw is, and that's what you're going to get from him.
He's just a bit Blaw.
He's a bit blawing. Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. No, that's the whole point of this, really. Next one that I've got written up here, Alex Seyfarth, currently 435k, 3% owned. I've seen a lot of talks about Alex Seyfarth getting that starting spot on the edge for the Tigers.
He's captain this week as well.
And he's captaining, so that's really promising on his end. 9 games as a starting edge back rower for them, averaged 60 points. With a base power of 55, full 80-minute games. At the very least here, I'll be looking at least 120-odd thousand in value, just going off that kind of average. Very low.
What did you say he's starting at? Sorry, I blanked out.
435 with an average of 44. With a back row average of 60, literally 60 on the dot. So, I just think I don't expect him to be banging out 60 every single week for the Tigers on a starting edge spot. I think those games are probably ones where he's come in and tried to prove a point, done this and that. I just think there's clear and obvious signs of improvement in a Tiger side that's getting better. For that price tag, like there's only a few really in that like mid to low 400s that are at all appealing. The rest I'm like very, very heavily steer clear of. So I don't mind this one. I think there's good value in it, genuinely.
Yeah, I'm buying into it a bit more now. I'm buying into it a little bit more because I just try and look through this team list for this weekend as well, and I just can't see like much competition for him either. Like him and Fainu, I feel like have just locked that
Yeah.
spots up, and as long as they don't get injured, they can literally just play 80 minutes every week and consistently. So it's a dream because the only slight concern is, and this is what I was going to say as soon as we started mentioning a Tigers player, was how many is too many for him? Because I feel like it's still that Tigers aura. And I already look at my team and I've got 4. I don't want to have one more. 4 to me is still too many for a Tigers at the moment. So
Yeah, we stacked up on Raiders and Doggies last year. Didn't turn out to
yeah,
be too bad. If they're cheap and they've got good upside and value, I still reckon there's viable play to do it. They don't have a buy for
you'd
a
go
little while.
5.
Oh, who are the other 4?
So
Throw 'em
I've
out.
got Jack Bird. I've got
May.
I've
Hunt.
got May. Sorry, I've got Hunt, and then I've got Skelton as well,
See,
who I see huge value in.
yeah, I think they're all pretty good, honestly.
Yeah,
Like 5's quite steep. Like 5 is probably more than you'd want to have
yeah.
realistically in any team. But his 2024 back row numbers, so just last season, 4 games, averaged 69.2, base power of 58.5, 80-minute games as well. That puts it as a price tag of 677K off this year's budget. That's a lot. Like, and that's again, it's a 4-game sample size, but combined with the 9 that he's ever played, 60. Like, it's not too bad at all, man. Even still, at the very least, he's undervalued for that kind of average for a starting position with like no competition.
So this comment can be taken 2 ways, but that was a very different team to what they've got this year. And he did that. So you can either take that in 2 ways. So you can say, well, he had to do more, so therefore, because his team was worse, so therefore that's why he was able to score more. Or you take it the other way of the team's better, so that's what he's put on with that. What's he going to do when the team's better?
Well, he scored 2 tries last year in those 2 games. That obviously bumped his average up to that 69. So if the team gets better and there's more avenue for him to attack, then yes, definitely. If the team's worse, then I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. But I don't think it's going to be much worse than averaging 40. Like, I think it's quite attainable for a back row in general. So
I have a feeling he'll be with Galvin as well. I have a feeling.
on the left-hand side,
I have a feeling they're going to try and have Fainu with Luai for a bit of experience, I think. But anyway, who knows?
Be nice to see how they run. But yeah, there's one for you. 3% ownership. I just think it's bloody screaming value at this stage. But we'll see what happens. The next one is sort of teetering on not being pod territory anymore because there's still a lot of talk around him. Is Kelma Tuilagi. So trial game blitzed it. Yeah, I think so as well. I was already pretty keen on it beforehand. I think I'm more keen now. I think he's going to be one of those guys that I definitely start with. If he gets that starting edge spot, I just don't see. It's exactly the same discussion as Seyfarth, really. Like you look at his starting edge back row games when he's actually got a lot more of a sample size to work with at least minutes over 60, because I kind of expect that to be in there, and it divvies out a lot of the bad ones. Last year, over 60 minutes, it was 75-minute games actually, so quite a lot. Average 61.5 with a base power of 56. Only one try in that. But again, it's not as inflated as Seyfarth's numbers, and there's a bit more sample to work with. But very similar price point. They're near identical. For all the same reasons, I'd be keen on running with both of them. And then we kind of get stuck in this thing that we did last year of this like mid-range second rower trap in a way. But I just don't see them being traps, and I feel like a broken record from last year. Their points are good in those positions that they're expected to get. There's a lot of upside potential in these two. Travis, thoughts on?
Look, I don't know a lot about it. I haven't really looked at it. I've heard it's more been for me. It's more what the hype train is, and I've been getting on hype trains, and he's one that I haven't been able to get onto because I just don't know. I think really for me, he plays for Para, And until I see some things improve, I'm trying to steer clear of some of these power boys, particularly in that pack. I fear for, what happens there if when Lane comes back, because there's a love at power for Sean Lane.
He comes through the middle.
Yeah, he's in the middle now.
Yeah.
The coach that loved him isn't there anymore. He's been put on notice. So.
Just flick him. Yeah, I think it's his
He'll be in the middle. He'll come off the bench, in my opinion. And I think I think Matt Dury's gone ahead of him as just one player. I think they got big raps on this Katoga that's playing again for the second week in a row. Who knows what's happening with Cardi, because the Cardi parties seem to have been buried now. He hasn't featured in. So he's not doing too much at the moment, and he's not really in many photos in the preseason either. So I don't know what's happening there, but maybe Roll isn't a big Cardi party fan. He doesn't want to party. He's down to business strictly. So yeah, who knows? But I am huge on Tuolangi. I can't get any bigger on him. I feel like he's just almost must territory with the price tag and his numbers. I think I read something the other day that anytime he's playing that, I think it's 60 plus or 65-minute plus roles, his scores are ridiculous. Like, you talk about stupid stuff, it is stupid.
His numbers are good.
Player. He's in.
Yeah. In those big minute games, he's got some monster scores in him. So that's why I'm like, for that price, geez, and for everything that's expected, why not? It's such an enabler in that position. So, and for 10% ownership, like these guys, you can make good coin on, and then just flip them to one of those big dogs that you're more confident with running for the long term. That's half the point with these ones as well. Like, you're not going to get Safe Arth or Tuolangi in or these sort of dudes and be like, I'm going to stick with him forever. I might even throw a captain on him. It's like they're flippers. You know what I mean? They're in there for a reason. Make some money, move them on. If they do work out the other way, I remember in 23, I started with Cardi with that intention. I ran with him the whole season because he just became a gun that year. I was like, well, that's a nice little surprise, but it doesn't happen like that all the time. So capitalize on their max prices. The last one that I've got on here, it's at 9%, and I'll have to see if that's actually changed or not, because he's been he's 11% ownership now. He's officially kicked outside of pod territory. Jack Gajewski.
Got to move on.
Got to move on.
Say it, Jesse. He's over. It's past your rule. You're not allowed to talk about him now.
Yeah. Sorry. He's great value. If he does get the starting spot, damn, double that value.
That'll be next week when you actually give us your team. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Sorry, one. That's going to get delayed for another week. They're the second rowers that I picked out, to be honest. I saw your list first, and I thought you covered a really lot, like a good chunk of the nice ones to see. The rest of them, they're all still pretty high ownership. You know what I mean? Like, I suppose you can throw in maybe CR Wong, depending on the discussion there. His ownership's super low. But again, team list come out, and he's named at lock, which would be insane. Expect that to like skyrocket. So, yeah, good things going. The halfbacks. Now, this isn't a position I like to pod. This isn't a position I don't think you should. Unless you're Joel, and yeah, you just do things to take the piss out of everyone. But Cleary Hines for me. Lock it in.
So I'm on Cleary, definitely, 100%. Get on Cleary, 44%. Everyone is. Well, not everyone, but people are. I'm not. I am anti-podding Hines.
I just don't think 20% is enough number to anti-pod someone.
Well, 20% is still a big number. It's still a good ownership. I'm not on Hines yet. I need to see some more. I get it. I get what he averaged last year, even with a poor year. I get what he did at the start of the year and before the injuries before Origin and injuries and all that. I get it. But I'm not sold yet. I think some things need to change. I need to see it first. It's one of those ones where I'm happy to eat my words and be wrong, and I'll find a way to get him in later on. But at this point in time, I think I've got Cleary, and I haven't gone Sandon because I've got him in the hooker spot. And I'm currently sitting on Duffy, and pretty happy from all reports about what I hear and see him from Duffy. So I'm happy to go a rookie there.
198k in the halfback spot. My God, it does so much for your side. I am keen on Duffy. I like what could happen from him, but at the same time, it could also easily just get snatched away the second Clifford comes back, and it's just, I don't know.
If he comes out and plays well, they're not bringing Clifford back. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, if he comes out and plays well,
you're picking a player, as you are with pretty much every one of these cheapies, that if they come out and stink it up, well, you're going to have to find a way to get rid of them. If they come out and play well, guess what? You've made the right decision. And we've got 3 weeks and boosts to try and fix that. And that's what you end up doing with your boosts in the first 3 weeks, is to watch these rookies and cheapies and see what they've done. And if they're not doing it, then it's get rid of them quickly and get the one that is doing something. At the moment, I'm happy just to see what happens with Duffy and how it works and go from there.
I'm keen, to be honest.
I'm pretty happy just to sit there with that.
Yeah, I like everything that he can do for all of his, Q-Cup numbers and everything that can come of it, man. For him at his price, if it all works out, that's immense. So,
he's currently 16% owned.
Yeah. Yeah, and that'll probably.
The point is, I haven't got Hines. As you said that you are starting Hines, and you can't go past that. For me, I can.
Joel?
I'm not on the Hines bandwagon, even though I'm very worried about that because he's Mr. King Unicorn at the moment, I believe. So I've got the Cleary Duffy partnership. By all reports, Duffy's season last year in Queensland Cup was ridiculous. So his numbers were stupid. And I think he was bound to be knocking down the door of first grade and get a shot, where I've said it a couple of times. I don't know if Clifford's made himself so far a must pick or a guarantee for any of those jerseys in his time playing first grade. So I just think this spot's wide open. And Duffy gets the first crack, it looks like. And if he plays how we've heard him play last year, I don't think he's given the jersey back. I can't see it happening. So I'm happy to play him. I am slightly concerned being trapped in a way, but I'm hoping having Cleary sort of offsets that anyway, because there could be times or weeks where I'm playing just the one halfback and I'm happy with that. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy. I'm not potting it to an extent because I think there's a lot of people going that way anyway. So I'm not either that concerned with that either, because I think there'll be a lot of people, if say Duffy doesn't work, there'll be a lot of us trying to fix that drama, and no doubt the week that happens, there'll probably be we'll get the extra trade in anyway. We'll probably push one of those buttons and say, let's make this happen and fix something quickly. So it's not a huge concern early on. The DC, I know you're going to talk about DCE, so I won't do much into that, but yeah, I'm very much set now with halfback.
Yeah, I think that whole idea of getting Duffy in there just gives you the ticket to getting 3-gun fullbacks so much easier. Which is such a popular play at the same time. I suppose, you've just lost Latrell for potentially a couple of weeks, maybe, depending. We'll wait and see what the scans say. If that's the case, then what 3 fullbacks are you going to go with? Because, Turbo, Latrell, Ponga were the set and forget gun 3. No one's really touching too hard on the Teddy or Dylan Edwards lot, or even lower now, Drinky, Walsh, those guys are sort of fallen off. But Duffy's the guy that you kind of need to. It's very hard to put a side together 2-gun halfbacks, 3-gun fullbacks. But I really like the play if it all works out. But I just can't not have Hines at his price. If it goes south in the first 3 weeks, he looks absolutely horrendous. I'll just trade him to Duffy. You know what I mean? And there's an influx of cash, and I'll just, rip the Band-Aid off. If I decide to, and all, I let myself lose 200k on him last year and didn't trade him out then. So we'll see if I can do it.
So with the news today of Mitchell, I ended up actually trading Mitchell out and put him down to Hines, and that saved me 130. But that probably won't last very long. I just played with that realm because I am, and you touched on the point that I was going to mention to everyone before was, if you do have Clear and Hines, you're only playing 2 fullbacks and a flex cheapie, which is probably an Iongi. If you are running a Cleary Duffy, you're running a 3 fullback potentially until the Mitchell news today. So maybe that becomes a 2 fullback and Hines. at 7:30 and save 130k. So, yeah.
The other
At this
quick-
point, I haven't got that.
The other big thing to note with Duffy as well, by our reports, and it's the reason why a lot of people have gone cold on Drinky, is he's potentially got the goal kicking. So that's another huge element where it could just elevate him to just getting a really good, solid number week to week, and happy days.
Yeah, there's every world he becomes like a playable halfback. He keeps the spot. He's goal kicking. He scored like 30 something assists last year as well in the cup. So like, yeah,
Stupid.
dude, it could be an absolute gold mine. And if it looks like it is, then yeah, I'll definitely be jumping on it. But I think for the start, it's the Hines play. As far as it goes, though, like I just don't see it being super worth going against that pack. Like we've got Cherry Evans here at 4%. Obviously, we know the draw. We know Cherry Evans. He's still going to be pretty good. He's going to have that good run for it. 646k. It's not cheap. Like for where you can get, 90k gets you Hines for potentially 30 points more upside if he turns it around. I would go that route every day. There's a lot of dual 5/8s in the mix of it too. I would still probably at the moment with the state of 5/8 put the 5/8s where they're supposed to be, considering there are more half options. But Fogarty 1%. Any love there at the moment?
Always love for the Fog. Always. Look
Yeah,
at his numbers at the start of last year.
Start him,
he
Joel.
was,
Yeah, you drafted him.
hang on. You want to talk that game? You guys have just been going on about some of the worst names you can go on about. You start Liero. I'll start Fog. And Jesse starts Max King. I'll start the Fog.
I got no room for Max King, but if I did, I probably would.
I'll make it. Make it work if you're that high on him. Off you
Terrell
go.
May and Tino, mate. My God, who's doing that? That's
I'll go back. I actually really like the DCE play.
Yeah.
And for a long time, actually didn't have the Cleary. I had DCE sitting there. I really like the start with DCE. I think the first 5 weeks of what DCE can do is going to be immense with what that whole team and what we all predict that they're going to do. And for the money saved, yeah, I love that play. I don't have the balls to do it. I'm Cleary now, and I think Cleary's quite healthy. And that was the chatter around whether Cleary was recovering from his injury, his surgeries, and where's his head at properly and relationship and blah 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 blah. But I'm I am Cleary, but I really like the play at DC and can see it working out for people.
I can see it as well. Even if it is like a short-term play, get that fixture run, get those first 7 games in, and then trade him up because I think he will probably make coin off that, that first stint, especially at Brookvale. Hypothetically, though, say Cleary isn't fit for round 1. You've got currently Cleary and Duffy. Are you going Cleary to Hines or Cleary to Cherry Evans?
Cleary to Cherry Evans.
So you're still going to fade Hines in that situation?
Yeah, I'm still going to fade Hines because I really like DCE's start to the year, and then let me just watch the pair of him and Trindle, how that Sharks, what happens there, and go from there.
That's fair.
I think you need the safety blanket of either one of Cleary or Hines to start the year. I just think that is just a nice comfort thing. So if Cleary was not to be named, I would go the unicorn in himself in Hines.
Well, you just go both and just get Supercoach properly.
Good luck with that, Jesse. You can hold on to Hines and lose another 300k.
I will.
For the whole year.
Happily. Yeah, let it ride. Diamond hands.
There is no one else in terms of podding in the halfback that we can talk about.
No, I don't think so. I think you're just doing it for the sake of it if you're at that point.
Let's do it.
5/8. 5/8. So ownership again. 5/8 has been such a bloody pain in the ass. Everyone's going Metcalf. Luai's very popular. Dylan Brown, Munster. These guys are all that sort of mid-teens-ish area.
Brown's 16%. Munster's 11%. Luai's 24%. That surprises me. And now Whiten's pushed up to 10%. And Metcalf is at 43%.
Yeah, so he's taken off with it. Burton's at 9%, so that specifically puts him in our category to discuss. Not really on the points to touch on, to be fair, because he is quite dear, but 9% ownership. It's very spread out. 9% is him, Kyle Weeks, Blaze Talangi. Go down a smidge more to 6%, Lockie Galvin, Dearden. They're the two that we're kind of going to go about, because 6% ownership for Galvin and Dearden. Like, I really, really am super keen on Galvin, and you just as keen on Dearden. 6% is really not much, is it? Considering, everyone's going to have Metcalf or at least a combination of him and one of these guys in their side. Six is proper numbers. So, Dearden, you've obviously spoken in, great detail about how much you think he's going to increase in his average, to the point of saying, pushing the 70s. Still feel like that's the case?
He'll be in the top part of the high 60s for sure. I can just see absolute growth in Thomas Dearden, and I've spoken about him at large for weeks now. He is still sitting in my team, and again, that's all TLT dependent, because at the end of the day, if I need some cash, I can drop Dearden down to a Metcalf and save myself 150,000 or 60, but to spend elsewhere. But yeah, I'm really keen on Dearden. 22 matches last year, 61 average. And we all know that Dearden played well, but he went under the radar for sure. And I had Dearden for a while to start the year, and ended up trading him out. But he definitely flew under the radar. And I think what he did in Origin for us this year, then what he went and did on the international stage, I just think that he's ready and raring to explode. This is Thomas Dearden's team. And I'm really keen to see the Cowboys and how he takes those reins.
What about Tom Duffy? What do you reckon? Tom Duffy grabs it by the horns and just says, "Take the back seat, Dearden. This is my team now, little boy. Sit down." What happens then?
Then I trade him out, but I don't think that'll happen.
No.
I think it's Dearden's team, and there's more likely Dearden says, "Oi, boy, sit down. You're a rookie. Take my bags to the airport and bring him off the plane, and pick him up off the plane and put him in the taxi because you're just a rookie, boy." I think that's more I think that's more the play. I honestly, and that's why I also think Duffy's in for a decent year too, is because I think Dearden is going to steer the ship so well that Duffy's going to get stats where he's going to finish, and Duffy's going to get that last ball, the good kicking. He's going to do all of those things that we really like. So but I'm the other point, which is what you sort of you only skimmed over, is Galvin at 6% is just stupid, but he's expensive.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, when you look at the two of them, he's 30k almost dearer than Dearden, which 30k can be hard to find if your team is stretched completely thin. For a 1 year sample size, understandably so, but at the same time, you can look at it as, was it just a great year, or is it just his first season in the NRL, and that's the baseline that we get out of Lockie Galvin. I am very, very keen on him. I would like to see how he plays in a side with Luai, because I don't know that there's a talk of, last year he didn't have really that much of a half to play with, to be fair. There was Caesar for a lot of it. I can't even really remember who else played in that side with him when Caesar wasn't in there. Refresher?
Dewey
didn't play 7 last year for the Tigers.
Oh, sorry, no, not 7, no. It was Caesar. It was
definitely wasn't Sullivan. Wasn't Finer. It probably was Caesar then, if that's the case, because I am dead set blanking on a halfback for that side. Look, he averaged 63. I just is Luai going to take points off him? Is Luai going to compliment him further? I just really like it. I think his price is really good. Obviously, buying him bottom dollar last year was fantastic, but I want to see how it goes. I think 6%, there's a lot of hype around it because, he was such a big player last year. But I can see why it's not more, because you kind of just run the risk. It's freaking a lot of money to spend on a Tigers 5'8" on paper. So, I'm super keen. I drafted him freaking 4th round, happily. Stoked to do it because you stole Munster off me 1 pick before I did it, Joel. But yeah, really, really keen. Really good to see him. 6% ownership. We'll see how it goes. Adam Dewey is one there as well. Obviously 5%. 431k. You just got to sort of put the injury worries at the back of your mind because he's always got them. But the 5'8" and the dual center wing is super valuable. I would probably play him as a 5'8" because of the slim stocks of him. And I like a combination that I had in my side for a very long time was Metcalf and Dewey. Just waiting to see what happens. But he's got a 31 game sample size as a halfback, which is obviously not where he is. The center samples, which is probably going to be where he's going to start from, 52 with about a 52 average there. His half average is almost 70. So he's definitely got the massive games in him with the kicking points as well, which is probably going to happen. It's just going to increase his floor. At the very least, at 430k, I just reckon it's undervalued massively. For former Supercoach pedigree in a way for a guy who's just copping injuries left and right. So shake those little cobwebs off, and I think he's a really, really good player to have in. But 5% ownership, there's not a lot of people that think so. Even with his bloody dual 5'8" and the lack of 5'8" options, I think it's just going to be a team list thing.
Do you seriously have at the moment half your team are Tigers?
He's not in my side. Neither is Galvin, but I'd have both of them.
Yo,
I'm on the Tigers hype train.
You talked a lot of Tigers up this episode. You are absolutely flying.
Well, the good thing with it is that they're all bloody undervalued and their ownership's quite low because they're the Tigers.
It could be undervalued for a reason. Let's remember that.
Well, not really, because you look at Dewey's average. He played 7 games last year, averaged 49, priced at 430. So he's already undervalued. He's already going to make a coin off his actual average from last season, coming back from injury. So now he's back preseason. He'll get goal kicking. What's to say that it's not going to be a 55, 60 average? I'd say 55 is pretty reasonable.
I feel like personally, I'm hating 5'8" once again this year. I don't think we liked it much last year. And I've just seen more than enough from Metcalf in these 2 trials to basically just say, I've started with Metcalf. I'm finishing with Metcalf. I am setting and forgetting with Metcalf. And now, Jesse, you've got me on to obviously Kyo Weeks to be in there as well because he's a fullback playing 5'8" in Supercoach. I'll just have those 2 and off I go. I just think, good to talk about some of these players, but Metcalf, I just can't see anything but absolute value from him. Add the goal kicking in. He's kicked 2 40-20s so far, and people are questioning his kicking game. I think he's on fire.
Yeah, and he'll get a dual halfback at 43%. You just get him. You just have him in there, and he'll either be your main 5'8", or second if you wanted to double up on him. But I think at the very least you got to have Metcalf in your side somewhere. It's too hard to sort 5'8" out without that kind of price. And just on weeks too, he has got a lower average at fullback. But geez, that run was really impressive, and you kind of just go, I'll take you for that one. You get in there, one then.
If he shits the bed or something, you can go down, and if Dewey's doing something decent, you can go to him, or you can just go up a little bit further and go to one of these players that might be. Maybe you can reach to Munster after his bye and things like that if it doesn't work out. So,
I think there's options there for it. But 9% for weeks. I do expect that to go up quite a lot, to be honest with you. Just off that dual and the starting fullback in that position. Is there much else on 5'8"? Not really. Nope. Center wing. This is where the doors really open up. And the ownerships are so friggin' heavy for these guys. And look, it's going to be one of those team list choosers because everyone's a placeholder at the moment. Toya, Purdue, friggin' McLean, Garrick, Jack Bird, Billy Smith, Garrick. Like I said, Garrick twice. And the other McLean, Jesse McLean, and Casey as well is quite high. They're all just massive. And I think it's such an easy thing to do is just build your side out and go bang, 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 get all your 7 in there and just kind of forget about it because, to be fair, they're all pretty good options if they all get named. It's more the dearer guys where you have to sort of just choose 1 or 2 because the cheap pods, there aren't many. As soon as they're a cheap center wing, they're not a pod anymore. Everyone's going to flock to them for their round 1 side. You just sort of have to pick up these other guys throughout the year when their value pops in. But I've got Herbie as the main dog. I don't really look at the first 2 with their prices at the moment. Obviously, Val Holmes is 5%. Lomax is 12%. Freaking crazy. And a lot of people, it's a lot of Roo supporters there who he currently has Lomax in his side. But I've got Herbie at 4%. Really nice draw, really, really high in base. Not a great deal of attacking stats either last year. Try-wise, I don't think there was too many. Would you spend up the coin on Herbie, Joel? What's going on?
Can I just say, I just need to let this out. I'm reading your notes about him. Fantastic draw, elite, great body. I mean, the great body part alone gets me very
Yeah.
much keen on having Herbie Farnworth in my. I just need to have the great body. So that
Yeah.
that's all you needed to say. I didn't care about the rest. Just great body. No worries. I'm all in on Herbie Farnworth. I had a big look at him today when I was making the changes with Karaz. Obviously, I was huge on Karaz. Not so anymore with this injury news. I have to have him out of my team, unfortunately. So I was thinking to myself, do I just go up that little bit and get Herbie, or do I free up some cash, go to another really good option that's a little bit cheaper? By a little bit, I mean about 200,000 or so K cheaper, and can help me get to that weeks at 5/8 and just help settle that position up, because I wasn't happy running two bottom dollar half and 5/8 in my reserves. So I went for that option, but I'm very tempted to reverse that trade, see what else I can do, and have Herbie in, because that early draw is fantastic. And yes, his body is just something to. Oh, right.
It's worth spending 728K for.
Yes.
Plus, he's playing on the right side as well. He's playing inside of Zarko. I just feel like it's a good side to be on. You know what I mean? Like, I think anywhere Herbie is a good side to be. So I like it. And I think if you had locked in Karaz and you had a little bit of extra coin, I would just go up. I know you can go down. There's a few other good options, but like, just go up.
I did.
It'd be so nice to have him. 4% ownership. What do you reckon, Trav, on Herbie Farnworth?
I just drafted him in my first pick in the second round, and very happy. But of my draft team. But in terms of Supercoach, yeah, 100%. Like, he averaged 74 in a quality year that he had. Word is he's moving to Osaka's side. So, and he's going to partner with Osako, which I think is huge. And I think that's only going to be even better for him. Yeah, I'm pretty keen. I think he's a great replacement. Find the 20K. Well, it's 26K. Find the 26K and get him up from Karaz to Farnworth. I think that's almost a no-brainer. You are right. There are good picks down, which we're going to talk about, which was probably a good segue into the next one of your Gagai.
Yeah, dang Gagai. This guy never really goes up any higher than 1 or 2% ownership. He's 694K, average 71. And for whatever reason, no one really likes it. So never ever. So just having a look at his previous average, because I'm pretty sure the season before, he averaged 72.5 in 2023. And that was just coincided with his move to the Knights, I'm pretty sure, because the sort of the tailing end of his Rabbitohs tenure was a little bit softer. He averaged 56 in his last year there, but then a 68 the season before. So it's not like he doesn't have it in his game. Like, he's always sort of had that game about him, but Jesus, his ownership just never really climbs. Super reliable, very consistent. I'm just going to pull up percentages for how often he scores over. Where is it? I'll go for these last 2 years because there's quite a lot to work with here. He doesn't really miss any games. I suppose he's not really getting selected for Origin too much now, is he? 70 plus, basically 50% of the time. 50 plus, 85% of the time at Newcastle. So, like, he's not going to tank. He's not going to dip. 90 plus, almost 20% of the time he's scoring. In those last 2 years at Newcastle. So 41 games, basically averaging about 71.5.
So in his 21 games last year, he scored 90 and above 6 times. He scored 300s, 137, 120, and 100. So, like, Mr. Consistency also has a good ceiling. It also has a really high ceiling. So, yeah, like, you're right. Why not? Just pick him.
He's going to give you the least headache, I reckon, out of all of them. And he doesn't need goal kicking to hold a 70 average. Yeah, geez. In in that night side, I just can't see it. And it's one of those plays again, like we've spoken about it, even with Yo last year. Like we're not going to do it. It's a lot of coin to spend up. I'd like the flashier guys, but I just think it's super reliable and super solid. But 1% every year, no love.
Great pod.
Super pod, yeah, always going to be a pod. I've got Campbell Graham at 7%, and that's only really because of his injury. I suppose it's worth touching on now with the way that the Rabbitohs are dropping off. I don't know really if I'd be super keen on Rabbitohs players for a little while. If he is named round 1, which is unlikely, I do expect that to climb back to what it was, because I think at his price, was it 500 and 510, somewhere around there, 505. Yeah, it's elite. If he's named, you got to get him. His ownership won't be 7% when that happens, but yeah, I really like that one. Just running down the list of a couple of them from the top down, really going through. Just stop me if there's anyone that sort of stands out to you. Dom Young, 3%. Nope. Toto, 9%.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Go for it. Because I haven't got Toto on my list, so I thought I may as well bring it up.
Toto's
What are you
free.
thinking? Yeah.
He's 688k and he's an absolute monster. I think he's only going to get better than his 70-point average last year. Like, so he's a 70-point average of 21 games. Obviously, he played Origin in the games that he's missed. So let's be fair to him. He played bloody well for the year. And he's posted 688. Toto's a freak. The loss of Taruva is going to, I think, elevate him even further. I can see so much upside in Brighton Toto, and so I actually went Carraz down to Toto instead of up to Farnworth. At that 40k that I've saved by doing that is huge. So I'm very keen on Toto.
So there's a lot of talk about what side he's going to end up on. And, if it's going to be the favoured right side to the least favourite left side. To be fair, there's not a lot in it. I'm just looking at between, 24, 23 and 22 as a sample size from left to right edge. On the left wing for Toto in those last 3 seasons, there's 15 games that he played on the left. He averaged 69.5 in full games, 80-minute games. When you change that to the right-hand side, drum roll please, because I haven't really seen them numbers, 67.9. So there's not really a lot in it. Toto's a gun. I think it doesn't really make too much of a difference. And if they want to shore up the left side without Luai there, I can see it where they put him there, but I think for the stability of it, it's probably going to be Casey on the left, Toto on the right. That right's going to get everything. And then Toto's going to just scream value because, 688, like we all know what he can do. So he's really impressive. It's just the draw is obviously a little tricky to start, but it's Penrith. So he can do it against anyone.
And then to add some extra stats, so off the left side, Penrith scored 35% last year. And on the right side, Penrith scored 42%, 23% through the middle. 7% more. It's pretty similar.
Yeah, it's not too bad. We'll just see how it shifts, I suppose, this year with Cleary doing all the work. The Sharks contingent. We've spoken about how basically everyone averages over 60. Mulatalo, Kyle Iro, Jesse Ramian. 2 and 1% owned. Any love for the Sharks, boys?
I'm very, 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 very tempted to go Iro because I think he actually starts to bring some attack to his game. And I was very tempted to go Carraz to Iro, ensuring he's got that base. The rest of them, I'm not keen on because I think players like Skelton come into it and can probably do similar to them. So I'm looking at value once again in that part of things. But yeah, I was very keen, and I've got Iro in both my draft teams this year, which I'm wrapped with.
Ooh.
I'm Yeah, I'm very, very tempted on Iro at the moment because we spoke about it a lot last year. I remember speaking, I think, very early with you, Jesse, and then I think a couple of times in our later on episodes and stuff that it was all base. It's literally
Everything.
just all base for a lot of last year. And then we're just saying, imagine when he gets a bit more confidence, they go to him a bit more, he's got a bit more of a license to do a bit more. I can't wait to start seeing him crossing over because I feel like he's not just going to score one try in a game. Once he has confidence, he'll be getting doubles. He'll be getting doubles and things like that. He'll be getting line breaks, and he could just become one of those really elite CTW wingers. If not, if he isn't already just purely out of base. So.
Yeah,
well,
freak, and he certainly put up he put up attacking stats in the second half of the year, and he just exploded. He was a dude that everyone literally I think for most weeks during the middle part of the year, Jesse, we spoke around. Yeah, we're just waiting for Iro just to peak to that price. He's going to be a really good one. We'll get him through Origin, and then we'll drop him. We'll cash grab off him, or we'll use his price to push up to another one, and we all just kept him.
No reason.
He then just turned it on, and we all just and the duel that he had last year with fullback was huge, and that helped me particularly sort a few things out. But yeah, it was an awesome year last year when he picked up attacking stats, and I agree with you, Joel. I'm keen on him too. I'm keen to watch what happens. My issue is there's 4 mouths to feed in that Sharks wings and centers. So, and it's one of those things like, and I think Joel, you said it a couple of weeks ago, it's trying to pick up on when Mulatalo is going to be that one that turns on for 5 weeks and he just explodes. And when is it Ramian's turn? And when is it Katoa's turn? And trying to pick that train is just a nightmare. So I don't have interest in the Sharks, but I enjoy watching and happy to sort of watch out and go, yep, missed that one.
Yeah, Iro. Well, we all majority of us had him. You didn't have him at all last year, did you, Joel? Sort of missed the boat.
I'm very keen to.
Don't know how you managed that. Yeah, he base power 52. It was really at the end he scored 6 tries, and that shot him up, to the ranks. I played him every single week. He had a reserve on him from the first week that I bought him in, and he had it on him for the entire season. And I didn't even think about really moving him on after he started banging him out. So, yeah, man, it's a good shout. Honestly, it really is because, second year, you have to think he's going to get a little bit more, just anything. He finished the year so hot. I can't just see him starting cold again. He got a roll on. So, but again, the 2% ownership, I think it's just, it's really it's a lot to spend. 640 on a guy that you got for nothing last year. It's got to put it out the back of your mind. Fletcher Sharp, I'm not really super keen on until we see what happens there. Same as Meany. Azarko's teetering on it, 9%. Playing inside Herbie with the draw, obviously. There's got to be some more for Azarko. I think that, to be fair, I think 9% is quite fair for him at this stage with his price, but I do see a lot of upside in Azarko.
Yeah, well, so it went all the tries last year went the Herbie Bostock combination. I think I actually have a prediction of Azarko leading the try scorers this year. I think it goes back to his side. I think that's a good shout. So that's extra points, which also comes with extra runs, extra attack, extra opportunities, which also then means he kicks. And I feel like he's also kicking as well. Well, he is kicking, but then I think he's going to kick even more. So with more points that they're going to put on, with Dolphins being a better team, in my view. So he's a great option at 9% and someone I'm very tempted to get and drop down to.
Be 3rd year running that we run with Azarko. That'd be fun. You know what? If something happens to anyone in the Manly side, anyone, Lehigh Hopewadi goes in there, man, he's in.
Start.
He's already going to start, yeah.
He'll be playing. What do you mean?
You reckon he's starting?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. He's been too good not to start.
Well, that's what I'd be thinking as well, but surely it's the same, standard issue.
Nah.
Well, if Garrick's going to be on the wing, then what's the back line for you then if Hopewadi's in there and Garrick's on the wing?
Well, I don't think Garrick is going to be on the wing. He's been named centre last week, so
Yeah.
And I think he's named centre again this week. So maybe that's just been false rumours that were spread out of hope from super coaches, which has happened a lot in
It definitely has.
pre-seasons gone by. So maybe
Yeah.
that was one of those ones that just someone got wind of something. But yeah, Garrick again, and he's been named captain in the centres. Lei Hopewadi on the wing. Well, they haven't named either winger really, so you can't read too much into that. So I'm guessing Saab might have an injury or a niggle that they don't want to risk, so he hasn't been named. And I just think, unfortunately, even though he had a bumper year this year and came back, I think it's between for the center spot, Cooler and Salau. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I can see either of those missing out, unfortunately, but just having extremely good depth this year for Manly. But Hopewadi has to be in the team.
He surely has to. Yeah. 2% ownership for him. That's nothing. If he is in the side, I'd be very tempted to start looking towards him because I had him in draft last year as a fullback, and it was huge. I was just like, God, I don't need a freaking gun. Like I've got one right here, and I got him off the waivers. So
How much does his stocks rise if Turbo does go down again?
Oh,
goodness me, he would be
most traded in that week for sure.
Yeah.
Running through the ranks, I know you had a post out to talk about Taruva, Trav. You had him in discussion.
Yeah, look, as a slight sort of conversation around, I think the scoring power of it is going to be his. I think he's going to bring over what he brought from the Panthers. I think at worst he's going to do exactly what he's done at the Panthers in terms of his scoring ability, because I think they're just going to have to live through him. I think the combination and love and relationship between Luai and him from obviously playing at the Panthers, I think is going to be something that they'll call on early, particularly early until things are comfortable. And I think Taruva is a really good shout out for another bumper year.
Is he fit to start the season?
I haven't heard of any
about
injuries.
him. Okay, I just thought I saw something. He wasn't exactly lining up well, but yeah, like obviously he did it with Penrith. Like he's going to score tries, just can't really avoid it. I think he's just a finisher. He's very much, he reminds me of like a Warbrick. You know what I mean? He just is always there to just put the ball down. He's always in the right spot. But going down a little further, Leah Tower. Seen some good things from him. Good pick up there on the waivers there, Joel, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Hey, I really don't mind it. 513, it's really awkward, and I don't think I'm really going to go there. He's 2% owned. The Warriors are a little bit funny as far as their side goes at the moment. So I like his game, and I'm super keen to see it. But he's a player that I would tempted to actually trade in. I've got a couple notes down here a little bit further on a couple of these 500Kers. So pretty much falling in the ballpark of the Graham, Tungo, Skelton area. Isaac Tungo, 3% owned. For the reasons that I spoke about at the beginning of the pod, actually, I don't mind it. I don't expect a lot of people to jump back on because he can torch the hell out of you on a bad base game, because his base is, it's about that 40 to 45 on a good season. I'm just so high on his attack. I think when he's going, he's just a freaking gun. He started last year so hot too. Round one was a 46, which was very typical for him throughout the season. Round two, 145, and then 100 straight off the jump. And then it didn't take much. Everything sort of just was the middling 40s to 60s between here and there. But it really super depended on Cleary. And if Cleary looks like he's in, I really like it. What about you, Trav? Do you reckon Tungo's worth a shout?
No.
No.
I get the numbers, and Cleary's healthy apparently and all that sort of stuff, but I don't like the idea, like his lack of base stats that he potentially gets. I don't like what I saw last year, to be honest. I just don't like what happened, and even when he did have Cleary there, he just didn't really do a hell of a lot. So no, I'm not keen on him at all.
There you go. Well, I hope you're wrong. I drafted him. But no, look, it could go one or the other way, and that's the thing too. Like, I think at his current price, I don't think there's a lot of downside. I think you can get a couple of 40s in there and it's not going to hurt you too much. But I just think ceiling-wise, yeah, if Penrith get humming, like I think he's just going to have to be a significant of attack on the right hand. Jarrell Skelton, 7%. We're really heavy on the Tigers this pod, aren't we? Just seems to be massive, but there is a lot. And Skelton, to be fair, he's only just joined them, but his stats are really impressive. Come from the Dogs. Obviously, how many games did he play for them? 24. That was 4 games. He averaged 63. Was 44 in base. He scored 2 tries, busted 3 tackles on average, and basically an offload on average a game as well. So pretty solid base stat numbers there for him, and he can obviously attack. Undervalued because he didn't play the full 8 games that it needs to put him into that category, but it would have put him in a price tag of about 620k. 120k undervalued. Do you think it's undervalued going into the Tigers side, and are you keen on him? Because I think you said you had him in your side there, Joel.
I am very, very keen on Skelton. I'm happy to have him. Probably one of my only Tigers that I'm not worried about. I just think he'll cruise. So does the work, happy to do the work. And so far in that first trial, he was doing that. So I'm happy.
I like it. Trav?
Yeah, same. He's in my team now at the moment.
Oh, wow.
I put him in a few days ago, just with a few sort of changes that I've had to make. I mean, his numbers at the Bulldogs are a much better team. For when he came on and had an opportunity, his numbers spoke for themselves. He's in a team that's, not too bad, going to be improved. They need someone like him. I'm definitely keen on him.
He'll need to work more in the Tigers team as well. Same as sort of Taruva. They'll both have to work, and they are wingers at work. So I think there's good arguments for either of them to, especially base-wise, will go increase and then just fluke the odd couple of tries. Like, even if you are worried about the Tigers early and how they're going to attack, surely they, just with the team that they do have, because they do have some talented players in there now, they've got to be able to get some tries because they don't have the worst start to the year either.
No. Yeah, surely there's numbers in there for him. But I think even in his base, he's got some of the best base stats of all the center wings. Like, even not just at his price point, but
matches it with the
overall.
top.
Yeah, like his base just in those 4 games, it's kind of hard to look at. You're competing with more numbers than you're getting in Val Holmes, Carraz even still very, very similar in base. It's just, it's huge. Scrolling down a little bit, I haven't looked and I haven't humoured it, and you're both going to say, don't do it, don't even look. Burbo. 419k.
Cricket.
Sure. Crickets.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah.
Got better ones to talk about.
100%. I've already spoken about Dewey in the 5/8s. We can roll through a lot of the popular guys. Obviously, we're not mentioning because it's the pods. So McLean, Nwanga Wingatasi is in there as well. Howarth, they're all viable. Just scrolling through, I'm not really seeing much more that's standing out to me. To be fair, there is one actually that I do really like, and I think he's going to get the spot there, and it's Isaiah Tass. So we kind of briefly spoke, me and Trav, about this one just before. Obviously, we're kind of anticipating him to get that starting left wing spot, while Johnson's out and that kind of stuff. So just going through some of his previous numbers, specifically for wingers, pretty average here and there. He's only sort of got the low minute roles. He's got 30s and 40s and stuff in him, but it's more so just in the starting positions against the teams that he's coming up against to start the season until that position gets taken back off him, probably. The Dolphins, he scored 58 against previously in 23 when he played them once. St. George, 49 and 68 against them in the last 2 games he's played against them. The Sharks, 51, 74 and 47. They're all solid numbers. They're nothing astronomical, but they're definitely reliable, super solid. He's probably going to get that spot. He's 5% owned. He's 327k. The way that I'm sort of looking at it is, if these cheapies that we have in there at the moment don't play out like we think they are, there's every chance that Tass is probably the cheapest starting viable center wing to start with in your side. If you got like a Purdue who doesn't get named, Toya, whatever happens to Billy Smith, he might not be in there as well. Tamale's a 1-week play. There's not a lot in the low, less than 300 center wing bracket. You need something. You need that plug. I'd really like to throw like a Jesse McLean into the mix as well at 234k, but there's a good chance that you don't see him for a little while, if at all, until an injury happens. So, I've been starting to build my side out with a bit more realistic expectations on team lists, and not just being super hopeful that we can throw in 198Ks everywhere we look and field all the guns and be like, perfect, my cashies are going to pay off. I really like it. And I think I think it's a very viable and usable option to make some actual coin and to get a starter, at least for a short window. What do you think, Joel? I'll throw it to you on this one.
I will repeat what I said a bit earlier. This Latrell news has me a bit nervous on, especially the South Sydney outside backs. I think he's vital to a lot of what they do. Tass isn't a worker by any means either. So we just spoke highly on Skelton, for instance, who we just know because of his base points alone, he doesn't need the attack, but the attack will be a bonus. Task for mine needs the attack to be relevant in Supercoach, and I just am very worried about him getting that early. Again, now without Murray, potentially without Latrell for a couple of weeks,
Walker.
it won't be anywhere. What was that? Sorry?
Walker's injured too.
Yeah, Walker, we don't know how long he's out for
And
either.
he loves going
And
to
they've
left.
got such an ugly draw. Like, it's ridiculous. They've got the hardest draw by any team and not even a 3-week stretch, like a 6 to 8 week stretch. It's bad. I just don't like it. I don't like it.
No, that's fair. Like, their team has definitely been, dismantled in the last couple of weeks. I don't know what's happened over there, but they've basically lost all of their stocks. It
And
might make more of these guys.
Unless they're on Munro.
Yeah,
because
I
of all
just
this.
think with all the things that are going on, it's just really hard to pick anyone that's super viable out of them. But I think where it starts off from the cheapy side, center wing up, I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope there's more options below him that come out, because that would be amazing. We can do a lot more with it. His center number's a bit better, to be honest with you. Like, his average at center is about mid-50s, 56, 53. Like, they're not too bad. So he's got it in him, especially coming in at the price that he's in. I think it's just more price dependent. But below that, man, everyone else that we would have to think is going to be in there is super highly owned. And if they're not named, then whoever is going to fly straight up. So center wings.
You've got two, Joel.
I've got two. Actually, sorry, no. I've only got one because I just remembered it's a pod show. So I'm not going to talk about one of them because he's already highly owned. So I'm not allowed to. That's all good. I'll give you this guy. And you laughed at me last week and I did mention him, but I just got to keep going back because I've got to respect the start of the year he had last year and everyone jumped on him. James Schiller. He is guaranteed this winger spot now. And he showed last year he can do some decent numbers. He's now got, instead of say Kyo Weeks and a rookie backline feeding him, he's got a very experienced backline and probably the only strength that Newcastle have at the moment. And he's also got Kalen Ponga feeding him pills left, right, and center. Plus the fact that he's got a bit of work about him as well. I am still got my eye very much on James Schiller as a huge pod because currently at 0%, I believe. I'm still, something is continually dragging me to him.
He's 0.4% owned. Specifically.
There's a pod. We want a pod poddy. There you go.
Mate. So I'll give you some of his numbers, right? He averaged 65 in his 5 games last year. Base and power of 31. So not much. Didn't do a great deal. Base of just 24. He scored 5 tries in those 5 games, and I don't think it was all 5-1 a game. I'm pretty sure he went nuts in the first 3 of them.
I think he went 2, 2, and 1, I think.
So he went, 2, 1, and 2.
Yeah.
So he scored in the first game against the Sharks. He scored 77, base of 19, 2 tries. Against the Eels, he scored 112, base of 23. That's actually pretty insane considering he only scored 1 try that game. Evade stats of 54, so there's a lot in there. And then he scored 2 tries against the Titans for a 69, 25 base. And then the following 2 games without tries, 35, 36. So, if the tries are there, you can do a lot with them. But if they're
He's my
not,
guy. He's
if
my
they're
guy. He's
not,
the one I'm
and you're
going to come back
spending,
to you both round 12 when he's killed it and go, told you so.
Are you
Told
going
you
to
so.
start him? Have you
So
got
you-
him?
I'm gonna start him. I'm locking it in actually.
it's a
Start me.
200k drop if he doesn't score tries. That's what you have
Right.
to look into.
It's all right. I'm
But
locked
again,
in.
if he does, like, he can go up, but yeah, he's too close to it.
And I know you did go past me, but I'm actually kind of keen on Fletcher Sharp.
Oh, yeah?
5'8". Yeah. I
Yeah.
actually think he might be able to do. The only thing I just kick because I don't rate the Knights, but I just feel like it's really dangerous having him and Ponga together around the ruck and tiring forwards. I drafted him. I drafted him in as my second, I think, CCW. I just think there's a little bit to be excited about with him playing 5'8" and getting his hands on the ball a bit more.
I really think Fletcher Sharp is a fantastic player, and I'm very keen to see what he can do. I just don't know if I'll be able to spend that much money on him. That's the only
Yeah.
problem. If he was a bit cheaper, I'd definitely humour it way more. But like 636k
It's a lot.
for the centre wing, even in the half, like even in the 5'8s, because he's dual 5'8. Yeah.
Yeah.
For 636k in the dual 5'8 side of things, he's not the 5'8 that I'm choosing. I'd be going for, Munster for less, which is huge. Brown for slightly more, or Burton or Galvin or any of these other guys. Jules.
Jules
then the
center
same
wing
thing-
fullback, by the way.
Oh, centre wing fullback. So he doesn't even have the 5'8. So he's not definitely going in the fullback spot. And for that amount of coin in the centre wing spot,
Is there a
it's
such
awkward.
thing as getting threes?
No, can't do it.
Surely.
I wish.
Because
I
if
wish.
they're going to they've named him in 5'8" throughout the trial, so surely he's a shoe in for a third position.
Well, look at Sandon Smith. He's a hooker and a halfback, and he's neither of them. So, yeah, I think once you get your two, you lock it in, and that's pretty much the end of the story for you, unfortunately.
What do you reckon they'll remove him if he does get the 5'8", which I reckon he almost has to now in Supercoach? Will they get rid of the CT dub or will they get rid of the fullback? Because I feel like there's a legit argument that he'll just fill in at fullback if Ponga is out, then go back to the wing. So I feel like they might go 5'8" fullback for him.
Have they ever removed a player's duel to put another one on?
Well, how's it going to work? They're just going to say unlucky. You can't get him at 5'8" this year.
Yeah.
Surely they just shrink the font and give him a third.
No, it happened
Yeah.
last year as well. I'm
Easy.
sure it happened with players last year at the same time. And you just go, oh, well, there's a player. They don't even play in that position at all, but they've got two duels for a different one. It just is what it is.
Yeah. Anyways, I think he's a good pick.
Fullback.
Yeah. Oh, I don't mind it. Fullbacks. Well, who have we got here as a fullback option? I suppose the ownership now for Latrell's plummeting quite a lot. He's 19%. That was definitely a lot higher. Turbo's 32%. Ponga's 35%. So he's sort of, outside of Ayongi as the cheapie, Ponga's officially the most expensive of the highest owned fullback in the list. I did have in here from the note that I put up yesterday where Walsh was at 10%. He's 11 now. So I'd imagine that there's probably some Latrell owners shifting their coin around and trying to go somewhere else. So we've got Drinky at 6%. I feel like Drinky at 6%. Oh, it's 7% now, sorry. We've spoken at length about Drinkwater in a few previous pods in the Cowboys preview and all this stuff. Like, obviously, if you got the goal kicking, there's massive wraps around there because you bump up his average to that 80 odd, give or take, or 85 or somewhere around it. It was never confirmed, and it's not been confirmed that he doesn't have it. So you can still sort of, speculate that he may still kick on it. At his price, 770, 7%. I love it. I love it. I'm always super high on Drinkwater, and I'm super keen to get him as a mad pod. So, I really like that play out of him. It's just the Cows draw is a little bit how you going. Is there anything that really pushes you away from a Drinkwater at 7% though, for his price?
That he's not kicking.
But we don't know that yet.
Well,
I know there's a lot of wraps around Duffy,
plays,
but
if Duffy plays, Duffy's kicking. Like, sure, that's just where it is. If Drinky plays and gets told that he's kicking, I've got Drinkwater in my team. I will find a way to put him in my team. But I don't have him anymore, and I did run the 3 fullback Ray with him as one of them. But yeah, I lost interest when I heard more and more about Duffy and more about him kicking. But either way, he still was like even last year, he still averaged 78.7. That's still elite numbers for a fullback. He certainly plugged. There's a lot of happy people out there last year that finished very high in the ranks that had Drinkwater for a very large chunk of last year. So, like, he plays a role, he plays a part, his scores elite. 7%, I think, is about right. It's definitely a pod play because it's under that 10, but I think 7% is about right. I think if he doesn't kick, that drops. If he does kick, that skyrockets.
Is there much point really going between the two with Teddy and Edwards? Are there 5% ownership between the two? Just more of a price point, a bit of question marks around if they can maintain that average and hold it up. I wouldn't really go pod play for Teddy and Edwards. I think they're a gun and they're elite, but they're just so dear for what they're probably going to do to start with. Edwards more so. I don't think Edwards can hold an 85 average without goal kicking. Yeah, it's just a bit much. I genuinely think Tedesco can hold an average of 90 plus, but it's more so you're going to start with a fullback at 920k round one. It's the only deterrent. It's the only reason I probably wouldn't do it. But if budget wasn't a thing, I'd definitely play Teddy over most. Next one I had. Go on, sorry.
I'm actually more keen on Edwards in that scenario than Teddy. I actually think with Luai gone, we keep saying I don't think the 5/8 is going to be literally third or fourth string, probably fourth once you throw Yo into the mix as well. I actually think Edwards might do a bit more in his game this year. I think there might be a little bit more ball playing, might be a couple more tries coming his way. So I'm actually leaning a bit more and starting to warm up towards the Edwards move.
It was a freak last year.
That much, but
it's
I understand the goal kicking thing, but I think he might be able to, just because of how busy he is naturally. I just think with no Luai now, he's one of the real statesmen of this side. I just think he might actually. I'm more confident in him keeping his average than I am of Teddy keeping his average. I'll say that.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I just think he had to do a lot more with Cleary out, and he took Cleary's role and his goal kicking for that chunk that he was doing it for. And then when Cleary come back, it was very noticeable that Edwards just went back to doing what Edwards does. Meter eater, super consistent, gun, defensive fullback, everything about him, 65, 70 average. And it just happened like clockwork, and you just could predict it. You're like, oh, it's not going to happen now. And then that week it happened, and it was just 70. But yeah, like if the Luai move makes him any better, sweet. But if it does, it's going to do is make him get close to his current price. Just don't see much more there. I had Walsh in there at 10%. He's 11% now. We sort of spoke about Walsh recently in the Broncos pod, and Kenny. Hey,
I said goodbye. Headache you don't want to have.
Yeah, it could be. The draw's not bad, and the numbers sort of lined up to look like it was a very, reliable, consistent 80, 70 to 90 odd point play, but it's a stressful one.
Yep.
And you're sort of bordering on a knife's edge thinking, is he going to get knocked out, or is he going to score me 100 points? Or is he going to have to score 6 tries to get me that 100? Yeah, I don't know. It's not exactly for me. There's a time and a place, I think, with Walsh, and I don't think it's round one. The one that I'm most keenest on, and it's the same when we talk about Dave Fafita, is Keeney. Garnu Keeney at 1% ownership. Yeah, look, we spoke a lot about Keeney's numbers in the Titan preview, and it would have to do, if it wasn't for the round one bye, I think that number would be quite a lot higher. But some of the best base stats that you're going to get out of a fullback in general, 16 games last year, base and power of 48, which is a lot, like a lot. And then you start to break down just the specific games. I'll just get it all. I'll get the numbers together. Trav, if you want to start talking all the good, fun things about Keeney, I'm just going to get all these numbers up.
Look, really quickly, Keeney is one special dude. Like, he's so good. I like watching him on the weekend in the Maoris versus Indigenous All-Stars game. And they took Ponga off and slotted Keeney into the fullback spot. He was just special. God, he's good. He's just elite foot skills. He's quick. He's so good with his hands. He's got such a good cutout pass. I think the Titans going to have to play through him so much. He's going to have to do a whole body of work. I feel like his body is good for it. Like, he averaged 72 last year in 16 games. And in a handful of those games, he had a 27-minute game. He got 22. And to start off with, when he had no idea what was going on, and he played a game here and there, he got a 33 and a 35. Then round 10 was when he actually started getting. So if you take those scores out, his 72 average just skyrockets. It's just yeah, he's a special man. He is so good. I'm so keen to see how he plays.
Yeah. So I did that. That's what I was just doing a second ago. So I've taken out those first couple because they were very broken. He played round 1 and then 3 and then dropped off and then 10 and then there was a bunch of stuff. But from 11 through to the end of the season, uninterrupted, averaged 85.9.
Yep. Special.
Just insane. Like base
in a
power
horrible,
of 53.
In a Titans team.
Yeah. Bad Titans team. Scores in there of 132, 112, 153, 124. A couple of 80s in there. Actually, majority was between a 65 and an 80. And with a couple of massive ceiling ones. Like, that's huge. 86 point average. You bump up his price to pretty much, what's that put him? In the overalls, puts him above Dylan Edwards. That's quite a lot. 85.9 in that sample size of games, which is the majority. Yeah, look, 1% ownership. I really think that's going to go quite a lot, and I think it just has to do with the round 1 buy. But yeah, if I was going to go cheap on anyone that besides that top fullback spot, I'll be racing to get it in my side, genuinely.
Yep.
Going further down the ranks, I suppose you can put Hammer in the same boat at 6% ownership. He's obviously lost the dual center, but we've spoken about the Dolphins draw. Hammer's an exciting player to watch. Super low floor, super low base as well. And you compare him to someone like Keeney with a really, really high base. According to any player that plays the game, he's got a freaking second row forwards base. Yeah, I'm not as high on Hammer when I start to compare the stats between these sort of guys, but there's definitely merit in starting with him as well. But 6%, I don't know. I think that's quite fair. It'd be a lot higher if he had a dual center. I'm not really keen on anyone else though in the fullbacks. I just think it's the same as the halves. You kind of you don't really test yourself too much with the massive upside position.
No, I think you just got to find your way to getting those two of the superstars. And at the moment, you got to have Ponga and you got to have Turbo. And then what you do with that third spot is whether it's Iongi or if you've got the cash to do someone and find a third one, I'm happy for that. But yeah, you've got to have those two. I don't think it's really a place to anti-pod really. To pod and and go from there.
Yeah.
Learned that lesson the hard way last year.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Again. No, just get your guns when you can get them. Well, that's pretty much everything. We've gone through the entire lot and picked out some pretty good potties in there. I'll throw it back to Joel, I guess, on this side.
Thank you, mate. Thank you, everyone, for getting through. That was a big one, a beauty, and I'm hoping you all enjoyed and took a lot out of it. Let us know in the comments who you decided to chuck in your team after this one, or if there is a pod out there that we have missed, please let us know. If you have got through this far, you have a business of your own, please let us know if you're interested in sponsoring as well. Reach out. Happy to have a chat to you. Obviously, footy season is literally around the corner now. So shout out once again to our live show that starts next Tuesday night. Please make sure you set your diary, subscribe on YouTube and Facebook so you get the notifications when we do go live. Really keen for it. We've got Sunday show, the review of the final trials, which will be a big show to talk about any of the big talking points as well. Have a bit of a touching point on the Supercoach side of things for that. then obviously the live show, and then Supercoach next week. We do end up talking about the Vegas, the TLT, any big talking points out of that with some shock potential teams. And we'll also discuss our own teams. We'll give you our final sort of teams and then explain to you a little bit how that's going to work this year, because there'll be the Wednesday time where you actually get to hear our teams, and then actually the benefits of being in the Legends group, because you'll then know right up until kickoff of every game, any last moves that we will make leading into each and every week. But that's it. It is a long night, a big night. We are going to bed. It's been a big one. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Hit subscribe, hit like, add comments, all that jazz. Help us continue to reach far and wide. But good night and have a great one.